2+2 is proud to bring you the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club.
This week on the Pokercast, Alan Boston, listener submissions, and more. Now, filing for prenups just in case they get to play Andy Beal heads up. Adam and Terrence.
Welcome, everybody, to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. I am your host, A. Schwartz. Joining me in the studio, Roscoe on the controls.
Hi. Nice to be on your show again.
Not Alan Kessler this week. That's fantastic. I love that. That drop's going to be used quite a lot. And joining us again from Mexico City is
Buenos dias. Buenos tardes, actually, technically.
The globetrotting Terrence Chen. Thanks so much, T, for joining us again this week. Short week, so we don't really have a ton of stuff to get to, but why we did do this show a couple of days early this week was because it's a time for our yearly visit with Mr. Alan Boston. The tournament, the NCAA tournament, is upon us. Each year he joins us to talk about, usually to complain about the selection process, but also to talk about some of the teams and give us an insight and his best bet of the week, so to speak. The one he always gives out. Each year he does that on our show. I'm pretty sure somebody out there maybe could refute this, but I think he might be perfect in picking his best first round game. So
right. Well, let's be clear. I mean, I guess lock of the pick. I mean, I don't know anything about college basketball, but I know there's always a gigantic favorite playing like some equivalent of like a seventh graders team. So we don't really mean lock in the week in the sense of the team that's going to win, but you mean like a value
best
bet, right?
Yeah, the best value bet. No, obviously right. Kentucky playing against the 16 seed or something is they're going to win clearly, but no best bet because obviously right. There's a line and this is the one that to clear it up for those that don't quite know what we mean. This is sports betting. you're always battling a line, and Alan's quite good at it, so he's going to give us our lock of the first round, or his best bet of the first round.
Smooth Jimmy's lock of the week.
The witty intro off the top was in reference to the fact that Pam Anderson, of course, is going through a divorce process with Rick Solomon, who she says won $40 million from Andy Beal playing poker last year, which is pretty amazing to come out and suggest that happened. We've heard, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about some of the rumors that there's been a giant game going on for years with people losing hundreds of millions of dollars and other people winning it. Of course, Dan Bilzerian talks about the fact that he won $50 million, was it last year or the year before, playing poker, and there's stories of bigger wins than that. And here's Rick Solomon coming along. Rick actually played in the one drop. If you remember, Terrence, think back to the one drop. He went pretty deep. I want to say he finished like fourth or something.
I think that's right. And obviously, like the thing to keep in mind is that if she's going through a divorce, it's sort of in her personal interest to like overstate his value, right? Like, I mean, I think that's sort of the way divorces work in the United States. So obviously we take that with a bit of a grain of salt, but it's obviously making a lot of mainstream headlines. You know, your TMZs and your New York dailies and your Daily Mail in the UK and so on. So it's obviously a very ugly Hollywood sort of divorce kind of thing going on, but Andy Beal has not. It's not without precedent for him to lose a lot of money. But was this playing heads up limit hold'em? I guess is the question, or is this another game?
I think it was no limit hold'em. From what I've heard of the game, it's no limit hold'em, shorthanded, and I could be wrong. But
because as far as we know, Andy Beal has only ever played heads up limit hold'em against one person, right?
Yeah,
at least in the casinos.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's all speculation, but this is the deal that. But Pam coming out and saying that, she didn't make this number up out of the blue. She's clearly been told this number by Rick, and maybe Rick was, not being honest or downplaying his win. Who knows what he was doing? But anyway, clearly, it seems like where there's smoke, there is fire. That we've heard several people, claim to win this kind of money in games. And Andy Beal, of course, is one of one of the billionaires out there who likes to play poker against the best players in the world. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. As I mentioned,
Rick Sullivan one of the best players in the world?
No, but you don't have to be. All you have to be is the best player, the best at getting into these games in the world, right?
Because in the one drop, he didn't look like he likes to fold.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. He played a couple interesting hands, but hey, Dan Bilzerian will come out and say, "I'm not a great poker player.
That's true.
I just happen to get into the best games in the world,
selection.
and I have no fear," kind of thing. So he did quite well. We mentioned it was the March Madness show, so we'll definitely get to that with Mr. Boston. Terrence, you're in Mexico City now. I hear there's rumors that you might be going to Cuba.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just sort of floating that idea. So basically, the sort of genesis of this is that my girlfriend's in Vancouver right now. She's working on her business, but wants to take a vacation. She likes the sun. She wants to go somewhere hot. And Mexico City, despite what you might think, it's the elevation is high here and it's a big city, so it's not super hot. It's not like a beach resort destination. So we were thinking of going to one of these very nice beaches that Mexico or Latin America has. The only problem is it's in all of Latin America being very Catholic, it's they've got in Semana Santa, which is Holy Week, which is Easter week. So in North America and I think in parts of Europe, you take Easter Sunday, Easter Monday off, and that's the holiday. But in Latin America, it's the entire week, and I remember this from Costa Rica. So we're thinking of going somewhere, and I was just thinking, like, boy, everywhere that's kind of a beachy, sunny, hot place. These are all actually Catholic countries, just because of the way the history world kind of turned out. They're all going to be taking the week off. So the only exception actually is Cuba, because obviously the communist
religion
runs.
was suppressed
exactly.
there for
they
so long.
They don't let that religious stuff die. Still a Catholic country when they're allowed to be. But so that was a thought. I don't know what I'll do, but I'll find a way to make the show go on. Don't worry too much about that.
Well, I might not be able to make the show go on. On Saturday night, I went downtown to a gig with a buddy of mine. Oh well, the guy, the Gun, our buddy the Gun, who does the voiceovers for the show. We headed to a concert by a band, a local band called they're local, Spirit of the West. They're a Celtic band that a lot of Canadians are familiar with. Unfortunately, their lead singer, a guy named John Mann, has come down with Alzheimer's. Well, he's been afflicted with Alzheimer's, and he's forgetting songs that he's sung for 20 years and stuff. So it was sort of one of their farewell concerts. We decided to go down, but on the way home, I get pulled over again. I mean, and I'm honestly when the cop pulled me over, I had literally no idea why he was pulling me over. I just turned onto a major street.
That's why they ask you, right? They're like, "Do you know why I pulled you over?"
And usually I know. Usually, yeah, whatever.
Oh, okay.
You got me, right? I get it. But he pulled me, and I had just finished turning onto First Avenue, which is a major street here in Vancouver. And I signaled. I turned left. I wasn't going very fast, and he lit me up just after I finished turning left. And because it's such a busy street, I decided I didn't want to stop on First Avenue because there's only 2 lanes and there's always tons of traffic going through. So I pulled. I went up to half a block to the next block and turned off the street. And he was furious at me for that. He said, "As soon as you see the lights, you stop."
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, I'm just trying to be safe. Like, I honestly, it wasn't malicious. I wasn't trying to run from you. Like, he was literally mad at me for doing this. I'm like, well, I understand getting mad at somebody for doing something, that's shady or whatever. But, anyway. So then it turns out what happens is he had run my plate as he was driving behind us. And so he ran my plate, saw that I had 9 tickets in 4 years. This is his quote. 9 tickets in the last 4 years.
Like unpaid ticket? Like you
no.
Okay.
The 9 infractions. I've been pulled over 9 times.
So you paid your tickets.
I paid all my tickets. So he noticed this. So he decided to follow me until I did something wrong.
Oh, you kidding?
And I was so pissed at that. Like, I get it if I go through a radar
You're
trap
on the watch list,
or whatever, but just follow, like everybody. If you follow somebody long enough, if you follow a cop long enough in a police car, they're going to do something wrong, right?
Oh, cops are the worst. Like like I live downtown, so I see cops turn on their sirens just to get through the red light because they don't feel like running the red light, and then they turn their sirens off. Like cops are probably the worst offenders of traffic laws. Now we kind of accept as a society that sometimes they're allowed to break the laws because they might have to do something important, but we don't accept it just to get to wherever they feel like going.
It just pissed me off so much that he just followed me until so eventually
you're like the fish, right? You're like the fish in the poker game, and like you sat down and like 6 other players sat down because you have this history. And I don't know how British Columbia works, whether we have like a quota system, the way that I know that some states, I think it's counties in the United States, like they have to, the revenue, they have to generate revenue by the end of the month or whatever their sort of fiscal period is. So they go out and they set up radar traps everywhere and they pull everybody over, for doing 52 and a 50, that kind of thing. I don't know if British Columbia is set up like that, but if they have any kind of incentive programs for pulling people over, then basically you just got victimized by that, I imagine.
It seems that way. And just, it's funny you mention that. I used to be friends with a guy whose father was one of the head guys at Vancouver Police, and he said, we don't have a quota system, but if you don't get a certain number or you are well below the infractions that everybody else gets, you're not promoted quite as fast as some of the others. So
because you might be considered to be lazy or whatever, but that just increases the average. It means like the average will always
be
up.
Going up.
Yeah.
So he comes up, he walks up, he's really furious, A, that I didn't pull over, B, that I've got this many tickets. He's like, it's not sinking in, is it? He's talking to me like I'm a 4-year-old, and I'm totally taken aback. I'm not saying anything. I'm not being a dick to him. And he's just like, I just get the feeling it's not sinking in. It's you get tickets. I'm going to write you a ticket. You're going to get your license suspended, but you just don't care, do you? Like the world, you just do what you want to do. And I'm like, wow, where did this anger come from this guy?
Right. Oh my God. Especially since he's been following you around for 8 blocks.
Till he finds something I did wrong. I didn't signal. I ended up going, I was speeding. He said I was going 80 in a 50, which is kilometers an hour for Americans is 50 and a 30. So he pulls me. So he goes, okay, and they asked for my insurance. I didn't have my insurance papers because I had just taken them out of the car by accident. I was cleaning the car. I left them at home. So he goes, okay, you didn't signal, which I thought I did for sure. He said I didn't signal a lane change, but he said you didn't signal, you were speeding, you didn't have your insurance, and you didn't pull over when I lit you up. He could basically bankrupt me with all these fines, right? Jesus. And I'm like, so I'm not going to be a dick to this guy. I'm like, look, man, I honestly thought I signaled. I didn't realize that I didn't. Et cetera. I'm trying to be nice so he doesn't ring me up. And then he said, and I said, look, by the way, I drive a lot. I'm on the road a lot with this thing. That's why I get a lot of tickets because I'm on the road a lot. Look at my truck. I've just bought this truck 4 months ago. I've got 13,000 kilometers on it already. I mean, that's 40,000 kilometers a year. That's a lot of driving. So I pointed that out to him, and his answer was, I drive a lot too. I drive to work.
Yeah, but you don't get tickets because you're a cop.
I said I didn't want to say that, but I got so furious when he said that. I love, by the way,
that you tried to explain this in a mathematical contect to this guy.
Yeah.
Like you're like, well, of course, if you look at the average and you consider like my expected number of tickets is going to be higher.
So and he wasn't out. He's like, yeah, I drive to work every day, and then I'm driving all day in a car, and I went, in my head, I'm like, yeah, like you're going to get pulled over in a cop car.
Yeah.
Come on. So anyway, he ended up writing me up for speeding only, and he was like making it like I was, was doing me a big favor, which he was, and he just wanted me to thank you.
They're always doing you a big favor.
Yeah, and of course I didn't.
Did you say thank you when you got the ticket?
No, I'd never ever say thank you. So, anyways, I got a ticket, but that's my 10th in 4 years now. So. Yeah. And as I mentioned,
and it is worse because I've driven a lot with you. You do drive fast, but I don't consider you a dangerous driver. I don't know what that makes me, but I don't think you're way to line. But clearly, it's just so much worse for you if cops will just if they don't see anything and they're just going to pull your plates and then pull you over for the fact that you have a bad history. It's just going to be perpetuating forever. Like you're really just going to have to shed this identity and create a new identity where you're just some other guy.
Yeah. And cue the people coming into the thread to side with the cop.
Yeah.
Well,
probably,
maybe. And we're certainly not saying that all cops are dicks. I'm saying that this one is a dick.
This guy was a dick.
There's no question about that. There's a lot of really honest, good cops out there.
No question.
But there's no question. I mean, if they feel like they're out to get you, and we all know that cops don't give each other tickets, and we all know that cops don't, they defend each other and all this kind of stuff. So for this guy to come out and say, well, I've never gotten a ticket and I drive all the time. Well,
nice logic, dude. Yeah.
I'm friends with everybody that pulls me over.
Your license has a cop sticker on it or something, I'm sure. Anyways, I might not be able to get downtown to do the show anymore shortly if my license gets suspended.
You could do this on Skype. Ross can handle
That's it. Yeah, double Skype.
I'll get lonely.
One more thing quickly to get to. You saw Negreanu on the news last night?
Yeah, I saw Negreanu.
Oh, was it you?
Okay.
Okay.
I was just watching the news while I was fixing some stuff.
It was on the
show today.
like the news.
It was on like the 8 o'clock news. It was one of the lead stories. They went to Negreanu's house and interviewed him about the possible NHL franchise.
Oh, in Las
Probably
Vegas.
News only aired in Canada.
Yeah, this is the top story in Canada.
Yeah, maybe in Vegas
nobody
too.
else.
And then they were like, "Oh, well, now we know what a Canadian in Vegas would like. So let's go talk to some Vegas locals." So they went down to a trailer park.
No,
and interviewed some Vegas locals, and they were all like, "I love hockey."
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, maybe it's got a grassroots there.
Yeah, it was kind of funny to watch.
I saw something.
What will
about
happen to Las Vegas Wranglers? That's what
are they still? I don't know.
They are. They play at the Orleans.
Oh, they do. No. Anyway, I saw Negreanu talking about ownership in the team, which surprised me. I didn't know that I hadn't heard him talk about ownership before. I know he was spearheading the marketing campaign for the season ticket drive. I wasn't aware that he was looking at an ownership position. Now teams, NHL teams, certainly NHL of the four major sports are the lowest value, to buy an expansion team. But I mean, you're still looking at several hundreds of millions of dollars for a team. Now that made me curious on what kind of percentage that Daniel's going to own if this thing happens.
Well, I mean, yeah, he can go in with Matt Savage too and create like the hockey fans who think that a hockey team in Vegas is a good idea. I think I read on Forbes not long ago, there are basically three teams, the Maple Leafs, the Rangers, and the Canadiens, who actually make money, and the rest of them are basically just being subsidized by those three teams who make any real good money. We've seen with the history of like hockey in hot weather climates, it doesn't really do well. So I don't know. Like Daniel's obviously got some money to throw around, but I always think buying a sports team is pretty much always a vanity project anyway, unless you're getting in on one of the marquee franchises, or you do like an incredibly good job of running it, like like the Green Bay Packers kind of method, which is pretty hard to replicate.
Indeed. All right, let's move on. In case you missed it.
Now, it's time for In Case You Missed It.
How did he miss the open goal? 6x4, and he comes up 0.
Oh, no! Oh, yes! He missed it!
He's missed it! How on earth did he miss that?
So as mentioned, T, a short week, so we don't have a ton of stuff. It hasn't, it's 5 days instead of 7. So we've got a few things to get to, though. The Alan Boston interview, I'm sure, is going to be long, as he's a very good talker. So I'm sure that'll take a while. So let's not spend too much time on this. We've also got some mailbag to get to. In case you missed it, the 9th anniversary Sunday Million drew 50,432 entries.
A small city, in other words.
A township. We asked Matthew last week to guess the prize pool, and he thought it would be right around the $9 million. Ended up being over $10 million in the prize pool. They did a 7-way deal with 7th place, a fellow named Ian Motter. He's Modzilla PL on Stars. He ended up getting $336,000 for 7th.
Wow. And
the largest stack... This is a $200 buy-in tournament, folks. The largest stack, Kelly Koulis, a Greek player, ended up with over $725,000 for in the deal.
I think he ended up finishing second, technically, but still with the most money, obviously.
Won the most money. Braden Fritzhall, 93, ends up winning the tournament. When they played it out, they left $100K on the table. He ends up with $597,000 for taking it down again.
And he's one of these guys who's relocated to Mexico too. I noticed that he had the Mexico flag, of course, as you mentioned off the top. I'm in Mexico, so I was like, oh, there's somebody having a better time in Mexico this week than I am.
Hell yeah.
But I saw the little Mexican flag. I looked him up. He's definitely been playing online for a while. Has had some scores. Obviously nothing close to like this, but seems to be a regular. But I thought it was kind of cool when I was sort of looking through the flags. I didn't recognize all of them, but 7 different. They made the deal 7-handed and 7 different flags. So showing real international Mexico there at the top, but 7 different countries among
That's cool.
that final 7 who chopped.
Yeah, that goes to the diversification of the poker players around the world now. There's all kinds of great stories involved in that. We played.
Yeah, we play. We don't even play online poker tournaments, but we played this one because how could you not?
You kind of had to.
You tried to rope me into like the suckeriest like free roll last longer bet ever,
and you accepted, which was awesome.
I put it out there because all right, fine. But you said you put it out there on Twitter. You challenged me to a last longer where the loser has to rap off the top of the show. You'll notice that neither of us rapped off the top of the show because I was very smart and I put in a specification that it's only if you make the money. So,
a must cash rap bet.
A must cash lasts longer because you're not going to knit it up and do all this stuff. You're playing. You got to beat 50,000 people. You got to play some hands. So. No rapping off the top, but yeah. So, are you disappointed that I didn't cash?
No, I'm not. We'll do some more rapping one day. But the part that made me happiest about that bet is there's a chance that you might rap in the future. You open the door.
That requires you to do well in a poker tournament. So at least I've got that.
So
on
it's
my
a
side.
long shot. Indeed. I made the mistake of registering early.
Oh yeah.
Which I totally forgot that. It's probably not a good idea because I can, late reg.
You could have unregistered and then late reg.
That too, but I didn't realize. I was at the hockey rink. My kid had a hockey game on Sunday morning, and when the tournament started, and I get a text from Ross. He's like, "You're blinding off. You're blinding off." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm at the rink. I'll be home in an hour."
We were streaming your table when you weren't there.
Wasn't there? Yeah. So I ended up starting with like 9,300 of the 10,000. That you start with when I could have just got the full 10K if I late reg. Yeah. But anyway, it got short stacked pretty early. I raised and whiffed. I raised and got 3-bet and had to fold. I got it all in with 8-9. I think I had 12 big blinds or something on the button folded to me and I shoved and I got called by ace 10 or something. I can't remember what I got called by, but I ended up winning with the 8-9 off, doubled up. And got whittled down again. Just didn't pick up any hands, and I got it all in. It was blind versus it was button versus blind. So I had, I think I want to say I had again 12 big blinds or something.
I feel like it was cutoff versus button.
I think I was pretty sure it was button. He had ace 9 on the button, but either way. So raised, he raised. I shipped with king 8 of clubs, and he snap called with the ace 9 off and took me out. So. There was no joy in Mudville. What you played longer than me. You lasted longer than me, even though you didn't cash. You had some interesting hands, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I finished around like in the 15,000th area. That's really funny. Like, I don't think I've ever finished like 15,000th in a tournament before, to be perfectly honest. Which is still better than most of the people who play the thing.
2/3 of the field you outlasted.
Yeah, I think actually you're definitely right. I feel like the structure was faster than it was based on you've been lined off. I did late register as well, not too late, about an hour. I was actually on a side note hoping to. I pre-registered the Pokerstars Invitational because I knew I was going to play the Sunday Million, and I blinded out completely out of that. So I apologize to anybody. I don't have to apologize to anybody who's at my table because you got my stack, but anybody else who might have felt that I affected the integrity of that particular tournament. But anyway, I had most of my decisions were fairly straightforward. I kept getting it in bad, just kind of in the sense that I was reshoving pretty light. So when I got called, most of the time I had the worst hand, but a lot of the time I just was able to
steal,
shove pre-flop and win. So I don't mind getting it in as a 2-1, 3-1 dog the times that I do get called. But it obviously makes me look pretty fishy. But it was fun doing the stream and hanging out with everybody. Yeah. Maybe I'll do that a little more often. We've got. Scoop coming around the corner, so maybe
Sundays will be good. I enjoyed that a lot too.
That was fun.
But watching.
The only slightly tilting thing, I guess, my tournament was that I was disconnected a few times.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so weird because I had the Twitch channel with Ross there talking, and I could hear him talking the entire time that I'm disconnecting. I'm watching it, and I would even hear Ross say, oh shit, Terrence just disconnected. And I'm like, why can't I get into PokerStars? This is weird. How is it possible that... because I know it's not my internet's going down. So I ended up writing PokerStar support. They wrote me back. They said that due to enormous strain experienced on our servers during the Sunday Million 9th anniversary and all-in shootouts, our system experienced some technical problems, caused some players to disconnect from our software. These problems are all fixed. We hope you're, again, continue playing as normal. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience caused. Now, it only caused me to miss like a couple hands, and I never lost a big pot about it. So... at the end of the day, not the biggest thing. Certainly didn't, affect my tournament too dramatically. But, I guess, 50,000 player tournament. There was a lot of spillover onto other tournaments as well, too, because I ended up playing like the 162. I noticed that the $500, the 530 Sunday was way above attendance. So it wasn't just, of course, this tournament, because when you've got 50,000 people logging in to play this thing, everybody's all playing the side tournaments as well. Everything, the Sunday Second Chance, the 500, the 160, everybody's playing everything because people are ADD. They don't want to play just one tournament at a time, or they busted the Sunday Million and they want to get even, or they're already at their computers and they're playing. But that was sort of my Sunday. It was fun. I didn't make any money, but hey, it was good to hang out with you guys on the stream.
It was fun. That surprises me about Stars, though. I mean, if you're gonna, they had a pretty good idea of how many people were going to come out to this. You would think that they were ready for the server load for it.
I tease a tough job, and I noticed that. Most people probably didn't suffer any problems. This email from support makes it sound like it's a segment. I don't know that much about IT infrastructure, but I know that it can happen that you might take down a percentage or like a slice or a trance of the total population that's playing, and it seems like I was just in that group, which kind of sucks, but sure, hopefully they'll learn from it. It used to be much worse. Back in my day, we used to have like whole tournaments go down to like 60% of the field to get disqualified, and everybody got a refund, and it was just awful. We used to be capping tournaments at like 1,000 players because we were terrified that if we went over 1,000,
you'd have to refund everybody.
Bring everything down.
In case you missed it, PokerPages.com is now a redirect to Full Tilt. This was one of the very first aggregating live poker cash data sites.
Possibly the first. I think remember.
It was. Yeah, I
don't even remember any like news media source that was there online before Poker Pages. I mean, obviously Card Player was there in print form, but Poker Pages was
they were
one of the
place.
first.
Yeah,
triple W's. Yeah.
Alex Dreyfus of the GPI bought the site and is now redirecting it to Full Tilt, which I thought was a bit strange. There's obviously a reason. He's a smart guy. He's buying up poker data places, and he's trying to corner the market and make his brand the leading brand. But if you're going to buy it, I'm not quite sure why you shut it down and use it as a redirect to Full Tilt.
Yeah, I'm disappointed too, because there's a lot of obviously really old stuff on there. Like people would write fan trip reports. I remember they published like a trip report of Vegas. My first trip to Vegas as a column on their site. They would have WSOP final table reports written by like guys like Mike Paul and Andy Glazer and all that kind of stuff, which were humorous, and it's part of sort of the historical artifact of poker. It's like we don't put things in museums for there's no museum of poker or museum of internet poker, but if you're going to, you might have like a Mike Paul final table report in there, something from like 2001 or whatever like that. So it's unfortunate, but you can always go to like kind of the web archive and dig through if you really wanted to see that stuff. But I guess RIP Poker Pages.
Tilt Boys was the one of the ones that I used to love. Remember it's the original Tilt Boys trip reports are hilarious. If you've never read them, it's Phil Gordon, Perry Friedman, some of the other guys.
Ray First.
Yeah. So there's, whatever you think of those guys now, they had some very entertaining trip reports of their first trips to Vegas. They were called the Tilt Boys, and they got up to some wild stuff. I think it was Poker Pages that I first saw those at, but you might be able to find them somewhere else online. In case you missed it, Cash no longer plays or will no longer play shortly, if it isn't already, at MGM Properties. This includes the Bellagio. And, it, for a long time, because this doesn't happen everywhere. If you're playing in a cash game, in a poker game, and you have hundreds, they play. You can bet and call with $100 bills and raise with hundreds. If you want to just throw a stack in, you think back to the Brad Booth bluff raise of Ivy
bricks
with the bricks of cash.
That cash just looks so
I believe that was at the Bellagio, wasn't it? Had they had that? Maybe I'm wrong.
It might have been at the South Point.
I think it's South Point. Yeah.
Either way, the cash played in that spot, and it always has played at the World Series events, etc. So, but the MGM is stopping this from happening. They don't want that. I don't know for financial tracking reasons or money laundering. I'm not.
I feel like
exactly
it's almost
sure.
certainly that. It's
Has
almost
to be,
certainly
right?
pressure from the government that they have all these cash on the table and just kind of freely circulates among poker players, and it's not. There's no transaction history to go with it because, the government likes to know where
your money is at all times. But in fact, I like the fact that they're changing it out. I think it's a good thing. I know a lot of people enjoy playing with cash, but it opens up the door, and I've seen it myself. And there's lots of other people who have been around a bit and have seen the angles that are used with cash and security problems too, like the absolute theft and rat holing and all the different things that you can do. Because if you're playing, just for the rat holing example, if you're playing in a cash game and you have, let's say you have 2,000 in cash and you have 1,000 in chips in front of you, when you stand up to go to dinner or take your dinner break or whatever, you pick your cash up.
Yeah.
Because you don't want the cash to get stolen, somebody walk up and grab it or whatever. So and that's allowed. You're allowed to take your cash. So let's say you have 2,000 cash, you take it, you go to the bathroom, you come back and you put 1,000 back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and nobody will know because you didn't count it out when you left, and nobody can exactly remember how much you had. So it's this sort of vehicle for doing a lot of things that we don't want to have in poker, and not to mention people just outright stealing the money that's sitting
right.
So,
When you guys get up from a cash table, will you take your big chips?
No, I don't take my big chips.
Usually not. Like if you're really concerned about it, you can put a box over. You can put what's called a playover box, which is like a big plastic dome that kind of goes over your chips and your cash. That's probably the thing to do. I mean,
but you don't always have one around. You don't have time. Whatever. I mean, that's a good idea in theory, but it's not always.
I'd be afraid to walk away from the table if I had like a couple 1K chips on my stack.
Yeah, and I think that's reasonable. I mean, the safest thing to do generally is to just cash out of the game, put yourself on the list, and come back if you're going to dinner. But of course, if you're in a good game or if you're a DGen, you don't really want to do that and go through all the waitlist stuff. But you bring up a good point. There's I've cash on the table. The only one thing that's probably good out of it is what Ross mentioned, is that it looks really cool, right? That's probably the only positive thing that you can say about cash, because there's the possibility of going south, as you mentioned. Now, I never really care that much when people go south and they rat hole money because whatever. Like it's not really out of all the crimes that can get committed at a poker table. I think that's one of the smallest. But there's angle shots. There's people who can have effectively dirty stacks of bills. Because only hundreds play. So even 20s, 50s, ones, all of that doesn't play at all. It doesn't count when it's bet. But also, the thing that I was worried about was counterfeit bills. Was that because you never know. I'm not an expert at people handing me money. I mean, I probably know if a really bad counterfeit. But if somebody were to pay me off on a $2,000 bet where I bet chips and they're betting cash, you're fundamentally getting free rolled on the counterfeit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's the hard thing to because I'm never going to put counterfeit bills on the table, but I don't know if the other guy is. So, yeah, it's always better to just let those guys cash it in at the table, at the cage, get real chips, which the chips are guaranteed by the casino, right? Like that's fundamentally the reason why we use poker chips, other than obviously the ease, is because when I take $2,000 of Bellagio chips to the Bellagio cashier, I know that person was going to give me $2,000.
Yeah. Well, and not just the counterfeit. Isaac Caxton came into the thread, and he said it's always uncomfortable for him when he bets and he wins a pot, and somebody called with a big wad of cash to not sit there and count it out, which implicitly implies that this guy would cheat me. Which is interesting because he doesn't. If the guy's a fish, do you want to piss him off by counting out 10,000? Let's say he bet 20,000 on the river, and the guy called with 2 stacks of 10,000. Does Ike now break the bands off and count out the 20,000?
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So it's this implicit thing, like you're going to cheat me, and he always wait. It's a EV thing. Like, do I risk pissing this guy off to make sure I didn't get shorted in the stack. There's almost never going to be more than 10,000, but
right.
So that's part of the interesting thing too. And the other thing is, somebody pointed out in the thread, one of the other reasons casinos use chips is that they're psychologically easier for people to bet rather than cash, right? It's like if you had to, bet.
I think that's probably true when you're talking about like small amounts of money. I think it's more that, like, if you're at the blackjack table and you reach into your wallet and you start pulling out whatever cash you have, it becomes more real. But I think if you're sitting with a big stack of hundreds on the table, I don't know if that's certainly true. The Ike thing, definitely, that's a really big thing. I sort of never even thought, because most guys don't play as big as Ike, basically, is that you never thought about the possibility somebody might have $9,600 in a 10K stack, a 10K brick, right? And then he's just going to toss you the 10K brick, and you're just going to have to trust him that it's actually 10K, not 9,600. That's sort of a problem. That's a Mike Sexton problem. Yes, that's not a general. Money. That's not quite a producer Ross problem yet, unfortunately. Although hopefully one day it is. But I don't know about the psychological effect. But sure, I mean, chips were invented to begin with to make people think that they were to just make them easier to gamble with. It is easier. The only negative thing is that it won't look quite as cool.
One of my favorite 2+2 posters, Dominic, came into the thread, and his quote was, "Good. I hate the table expecting me to exchange my chips for $100 bills when another player busts or first sits down. I'm not the fucking bank."
Yep.
Which,
wait, can you explain that? They want you to.
So what happens is, if let's say you're at the table and you've got a big stack of chips in front of you, and somebody sits down, a new player, and they have $1,000 and they want to buy in 1,000.
Oh, and then it takes
forever to get a chip runner So what he says is, "Here, sell me 1,000."
Yeah.
So that pisses off, because you can't really say no to a guy. You're gonna cash him a couple hundred. Moving on. In case you missed it, Mike Sexton wrote a blog about the World Series of Poker. And in it, he took some shots. I mean, Mike is he loves the World Series of Poker.
Did you say shots?
Shots fired.
He's a big fan. He goes every year. It's one of his favorite things. Clearly, I think he's posting this because he does love the World Series of Poker. And I'll quote him here. "Here's what I'm not a big fan of: the World Series of Poker keeping players' money for 4 months."
Referring to the November 9, obviously.
Yeah, and they pay interest. I think Seth Blansky came in or tweeted at him.
Ty Stewart.
Or was it Ty Stewart? And corrected him in that they do pay interest on the money to the players when they do come back for the November 9. How much interest or whatever, I don't know. Who knows if they're getting a good rate or not. But the point is they are accommodating for that. But I understand Mike's point. I mean, it's money that is out of the poker economy, clearly, for however many months, which is more damaging than anything. His next thing was players having an opportunity to train for additional 4 months. Just to talk about that one, that's my biggest problem with November 9 by far. I still lean towards having it because I think it's the spectacle is awesome. If there was another way to do it, having the spectacle and not giving this opportunity for players to go out and become completely different poker players than they were when they finished at the final table. I would like if there's a way to do that. I don't know that there is. So I don't know. T, we've talked about this before, but this bothers me a lot.
Yeah, 4 years ago, I probably would have agreed with you. Now we've just sort of accepted it. For me, the November 9 thing the concern for me has always been about potential cheating and whole card exposure and all the stuff that can sort of conspiratorially happen in 4 months. Ty Stewart, you mentioned, responded to Mike Sexton. I thought he actually did a really, really great job in not being kind of overly corporate in his responses. So if you've read Mike Sexton's blog, make sure you read the comments section too, because Ty responds in there, and he sort of analogized it to something like the two teams playing in the Super Bowl. They're going to go over videotape of the team's previous games, and 4 months is a really long time. But I feel like it is such a special event. I don't really have a problem with people going over footage. I know that if I ever made the final table, I would have a team of people studying footage on all of my opponents, people trying to play against me and telling me all my weak points and any of my tells and any of that stuff going on. I don't mind that aspect of poker at all. And, not to bring our old friend Alex Dreyfus into this again, but if we were going to talk about sportifying poker, this is very much a sport of poker kind of way. I originally was one of the biggest enemies, or I talked a lot about my blog about how I thought the November 9 was a really, really terrible idea. But 4 years onwards, the main concern I still have is the integrity of the whole card camera and all that kind of stuff. But if that stuff was 100% on lockdown, then I don't mind any of this, holding the money or coaching or I think coaching is a cool aspect. I think it's really cool that poker players are working very hard to get advice from guys who are considered the elite in the poker world, because this is their one opportunity and they'll never have another opportunity to play for this much money. You should go out there and get some coaching, I think.
It's interesting, right? I mean, if you're a novice player, not a novice player, but you're not a professional who's put in a ton of time and you go deep in the main event, when you get to like 13 or 14 people left, if you think about it, you're the implied value of being able to, even if you're going to be conservative and get your way into the November 9, rather than play a bunch of pots that you might get outplayed in, but the ability for you to go out and get coaching, if you do end up making the November 9 and becoming a much better player than you are, is a pretty big factor in how you should play those last 3 or 4 eliminations.
You would think so, right? But we've had guys like Jay Farber make the final table, and you don't see any significant coaching or at least any huge improvement in their play over time, which is kind of surprising to me. So I feel like it's the people who are taking advantage of the coaching and really going out there and getting after it are the people who were really good players to begin with.
True.
It's really the really good getting even better. I was talking to JC Alvarado, this week while we were hanging out, and he mentioned that Marco Jakobsen actually asked him for advice on physical preparation, exercise and diet and all that kind of stuff. And they talked about that a lot. And clearly Marco Jakobsen was one of the best players who was going to go into the final table long before ever talking to anybody. They could have played from 27 players straight down to a winner, and Marco Jakobsen would have been a big favorite. But you would think that if you were an amateur or weaker player and you made the November 9, even if you were short a stack, all you would be doing in the interim is getting poker coaching. But it seems to be not the case.
The next thing you mentioned, health and welfare. The next thing Mike talked about was regarding that. Those of us that are in shape are being penalized by allowing others months off to rest, etc. One of these days, someone's going to die in the 4 months before the final table, and I always hear that one, and then I just roll my eyes. But I'm guessing they'll put a little coffin on the table and blind that person off, a somber victory for the eventual winner.
I'm going to take the no on that particular prop, on the coffin on the table prop.
Yeah, no, obviously not. Yeah. First of all, I didn't realize Mike was in such great shape. Second of all,
yeah, it was here's a guy everybody who makes the final table now is 27, and
right?
He's I could smoke these kids if we just kept playing.
Maybe he is. Well, I mean, hey, here's a guy who's played poker for a long time and is used to playing long sessions. So maybe he's mentally more fit than some of the people who are, haven't had that experience. But just that part doesn't really bother me too much. The resting, whatever. I mean, I don't think that has anywhere near.
Yeah, it is a mental endurance sport, so I get that. But at the same time, I hate these poker tournaments. And you get this a lot during the World Series, but and other festivals. I hate ending my day at 3 p.m. and then I'm back at noon, or 1 p.m. the next, or 3 a.m. and back at noon. It's not there's a sort of a line to be drawn between endurance, mind sport, whatever, and let's just murder these people with playing poker. Super high stakes poker is very mentally stressful. I'm okay with people getting a little bit of a break. I mean, you could do that with any sport, right? You could make the finals of Wimbledon 2 hours after the semifinals, and then you could just say, oh, well, if you were in good shape, then you could play the semifinals and the finals. But in reality, we don't do that because we want to watch the best tennis players in the world play at their actual best, right?
Yeah, golf, you could play 36 holes on the Sunday just to try and wear them out for whatever reason. The next thing was, and these are all obviously issues with the November 9, a player from Finland, South Africa, or Australia, one of these days is going to make it to the final table with 2 or 3 big blinds and have to travel all the way back to Vegas to most likely go out in the first couple of hands and receive no additional money. Well, I mean, if you're from South Africa, Finland, or Australia, and you go play the main event, there's clearly you are understanding that if you go to I'm sure if you ask them before they make the final table of the November 9, go, hey, is it going to piss you off if you have to come all the way back in November with 3 big blinds? I think everybody's going to be all right with it.
Yeah. Do you guys remember the Miss South Carolina thing where where she gave like the worst response about some people in the Iraq and South Africa don't have maps? That is a great thing. YouTube the Miss. I'll send you guys a link, but it's the Miss South Carolina giving the worst Miss America response ever. So I was just reminded of the Finland, South Africa, or Australia. It seems like the most random countries to choose from.
Yeah, long way away from
But
Vegas.
yeah, Ty Stewart also pointed out that they're flying these guys business. I do think that jet lag is a real thing.
Clearly. But you can decide to, I mean, maybe your life doesn't allow you to come a week early or whatever, but...
Yeah, you should come in, we bring this back to traditional sports, Manny Pacquiao lives in the Philippines and he has to go fight in Las Vegas. That sucks for him, but he's being paid $30 million every time he does it. So he says the November 9 is really player unfriendly, and then he...
See, I don't agree. He said, simply put, the November 9 doesn't put players first, but in a roundabout way, it really does. Because it
puts media first to some extent, I think, because it allows them to create this media circus, which everybody loves. But a lot of the fans of poker are, of course, poker players too, right? So does it put those 9 guys first? Maybe not.
Well, I think in a roundabout way it does, because the field for that tournament that they finished 9th in would not have been anywhere near the size if you accept the argument that this is good for poker and it drives people to this tournament, and it has made this tournament what it is. So they're going to cash directly in on that, support that the November 9 has given this tournament.
Well, what was the first year of the November 9? Because it hasn't been the entire Rio.
No, I want to say 2009 would be.
2000. It looks like 2008. So we had like 3 years of the World Series happening before then, and I don't think. So I mean, to some extent, yeah, but I mean, because like the Jamie Gold year was not a November 9
internet
year.
driven, yeah.
Yeah, because that was internet driven, and then the November 9 just. But yeah, I sort of see your argument. I'm not 100% sure that it's right, but yeah, and also I guess. But if you were going to say that there's a benefit to these 9 guys, it's that it gives them extra time to get exposure and become household names if that was something that they were interested in, right?
Yeah.
Because what they really look. Harrah's Caesars, what they're doing is they want to be able to get all of their TV shows out, produced, and aired 1 week at a time, and then have that build up to November 9. You just can't do that if you have the final table 2 or 3 days after that, because you would never be able to get the TV build up, or you'd have to run like an unedited show, which unedited poker, not so great, all that kind of stuff. So it's a television thing. So let's not pretend like they're doing it just for the good of the game. On the other hand, it's not like it's clear that a lot of people have benefited from the delay, not just in terms of poker coaching, but in terms of establishing a brand and all that kind of stuff. And if one day if some woman or other big personality makes the main event final table, that person's going to hit some instant celebrity that will be amplified by the fact that people are watching them on TV for 4 months before this thing happens, and then watching them semi-live when it does happen.
Yeah, next quote was, "Well, I do love the World Series of Poker. My concerns are clear to see. They're attempting to strengthen their bottom line, which we all understand and appreciate, but in doing so, they're diluting their product, i.e. the value of the bracelet." And here he's talking about the fact that we keep getting more and more tournaments every year, But just over time, even if they had 50 tournaments a year every year, obviously Mike doesn't want them to go down, I don't think. He doesn't want it to be 30 tournaments and then 20 and then 10. So when you do get more and more bracelets out there, more and more different people winning it, is that what he means by diluting the value of bracelet?
Or this maybe means a smaller buy-ins, like there's the fact that there's a 500, which we've talked about on this show.
Right.
I never get this argument because it's so much harder to win a bracelet in 2014 or 2015 than it was in 1989. Like, I don't care if there were only 12 events or 15 events back in the 80s or whatever it was, and there are like 60 now because the field sizes are fucking gigantic compared to okay, so you could win like multiple, like you could win a bracelet like every year back in the day and beat like 35 people for it, which just never happens now, with the exception of like the one drop and like the 10K single draw and like these really kind of esoteric events. But those events aren't the ones that he's even complaining about, right? Because nobody's complaining about like the 50K and all these small fields. You're talking about like the $500 and the Colossus and the multi-injury. These people all have like anywhere from like any no limit hold'em tournament has a minimum of like 2,000 people at the 1,500 level, and up to like what 12,000. Like, how many are they going to get for this like the Colossus event? Like,
well, we'll get to that. There's huge numbers being discussed for that tournament.
Yeah. I mean, it's way harder to win a bracelet now. So I don't see, if you're one of these guys that says, oh, a bracelet is value, a bracelet really means something, it's really important. Certainly, I would think a 2014 bracelet's much tougher to win than a 1985 bracelet.
Agreed. And if you're going to talk about the playing in the mixed games events, you're going to talk about playing against the best players in the world. Yeah, there's only 200 of them, but they're all damn good at
but even still, even if you're talking about like a 1,500 horse event, that's still going to have like 700-800 people or something like that. That's still tough.
That's true. Yeah, indeed. I was mentioning more the 10Ks, but yeah, no question. Even those fields are gigantic. You mentioned it, the Colossus event, the $500 buy-in, $5 million guaranteed event this year at the World Series of Poker. Seth Polanski has set internally, I guess they have sort of this, how many do you think are going to show up? And he let it slip that he thinks there's going to be 24,600 people. That's the number he feels is going to be at this $500 event. More conservative people are setting the line between 10 and 15,000. Amazing numbers that this thing's going to do. I guess he's going off pre-regs, like people who have wired the money and registered with credit card, however they're going to do it. But insane amount of people are poised to play this thing, T.
Yeah, it would be fun to get him together, like all of the WSOP guys. It'll never happen, but all the WSOP guys with all the PokerStars guys, and they can talk about how they make these projections. To you and me, it seems like just this black box where like numbers kind of come out. And we talked about Matt Hilbert being a little bit conservative on the Sunday Million guarantee and being off by about 10%. But like that's an insane number. I think there was, I don't remember what the exact number that was quoted, like 70 or 75% of the people who enter will re-enter. So like, in terms of unique players, it's like, it's not as high. It's still an insane number, but that alone makes it really, really crazy if that's true.
Excellent point. I should point out that I think he meant 24,600 entries, not people. I think I said people. 24,600 entries. As you mentioned, people can register once each day.
So someone said that Stars made about 800K in rake on this Sunday Million. So I think the rake's almost double for...
It's going to be crazy, yeah. Well, they take 11% rake, I want to say, or 12%.
They take 11% rake off a $500 buy-in as opposed to 8%, I think Stars takes.
Just some things on the tournament. Players are going to be assigned on a first-come, first-served basis. Once the flight's initial capacity has been reached, registration for that starting flight closes. There's 4 starting flights. Seats will then be sold to a late wave flight 1. So I think it's 4,000 and 4,500. There's 4 days is the max for each original starting number. And then each day they have a late wave flight 1 and a late wave flight 2, which is 750 people for the late wave flight flight 1 and 1,000 for the flight 2. So they're going to get a full stack. They're just going to sit down with higher blinds. This is the on each day. So you add those numbers up, and we're getting into some pretty crazy totals. Players may not re-enter the same flight, but re-entries are allowed for following flights. Players may not forfeit their current chip stack at the end of they may forfeit their current chip stack at the end of the flight prior to bagging if they choose for the opportunity to re-enter the following flight. So if you end the day and you have 3 big blinds, you can just, I don't know why you'd have it 3 big blinds, because you would have been shipping it in if you wanted to.
Well, you could lose the last pot of the day.
Good point. Yeah, you could lose the last pot. So you can give up your chips and come back next day and buy in again. Players may not enter another flight once they have survived a flight with chips and haven't forfeited them. So I thought that was interesting, taking those chips.
So you have
out
to declare. I think if I'm reading or if I'm hearing you right, you have to declare whether or not you're forfeiting as you're bagging.
Yes.
Okay. So that's good to know.
Each day one flight will play 10 40-minute levels, 7 hours, 45 minutes of playtime with no dinner break. The 10 a.m. flights are estimated to end at 5:45.
Thank God for the no dinner break, by the way. I just like to say that.
Oh, I know. Can you imagine if there was one? And 6 p.m. flight will end at 1:45. These are all local Vegas time, so they're playing till 1:45 a.m. in the second flights. Caesars is suggesting you pre-reg now. Either you do it online, wire it, the main cage if you're in Las Vegas. It's going to be...
Do not stand in that line.
It's going to be a joke, yeah. So if you're
planning... Bring a really good book if you plan to do that.
Yeah, have lots of patience. In case you missed it, Kevin Boudreau, Thwap, our buddy, or not our buddy, but our guy that we cheer for, he finished.
He's
7th.
Everybody's buddy. We all love.
Never met him, but he's. You hope you're his buddy. Great inspirational story. He went deep in a tournament last month. We talked about it. This week he finished 7th at the Mid-Stakes Poker Tour event for $15,000. Is it really his second tournament?
Yeah, he's never. This is the only he's only registered 2 tournaments since this happened, and he final tabled both of them. How awesome is that?
That's
so awesome. He's maybe he's getting he's starting to break even from stuff happening badly. It's pretty awesome to see. Everybody cheering for him as always. Great. I mean, I think physically there's still a lot of ways to go from what I hear from kind of his friends. But obviously his brain is 100% there. He's obviously playing poker at a super high level to be able to make these final tables. So hopefully his physical recovery goes really well and he can start crushing. Yeah,
that's an awesome story. Speaking of great stories of guys who are crushing, Anthony Zinno, we just finished talking about on the last show, he won the Bay 101 High Roller for $200,000.
Jesus, just stop already.
It's crazy, yeah. In fact, it's interesting because I was emailing back and forth with him about coming on last week's show, and he's like, yeah, if I bust out
I'm too busy counting my money.
Yeah. If I bust out of the high, he emails me back and says, if I bust out of the High Roller, I'll jump on the show. So he, just before the show, he emailed me and said, sorry, I'm still alive in this thing. And I said, yeah, you go ahead and win it. You're due. I mean, come on. So he does end up putting it.
Does it count as PokerCast karma if they never actually appear on the show, but you asked them to appear on the show, or you can take credit for that?
Why not? Well, why can't we take credit? He ended up chopping it with Paul Volpe, and when they played it out, Anthony took it down. So he's doing okay lately.
And so is that Paul Volpe guy.
Yeah.
He does all right.
In case you missed it, the Borgata, and this was from a couple of weeks ago, we never got around to it. The Borgata is going to start offering, or they've been allowed to start offering from the New Jersey regulators, skill-based gaming. And this I thought was really interesting, and I wanted to get around to talking about it. We just had too much stuff. But think about this. First of all, I think what they've done is they've scheduled a free throw shooting contest to begin with, the first thing that they're doing. It's a $20
perfect thing for this kind of thing.
It is and it isn't, I think, because there's not enough luck in it for me. It's a $20 buy-in, so you can, I think, presumably enter as many times as you want. You get 90-second rounds with a chance to qualify for the final 16. So the top 16 scores in the 90 seconds will then come back and play for the money. I think the top 4 split $10,000, or the second through fifth split for 10,000. The winner gets 5,000. So it sounds like 5,000, 2,500, 2,500, some denomination. The problem, of course, is look at the rake on this thing. I mean, it's $20 buy-in. I'm sure they're going to get how many people just come in and blast off $20. It's like playing Pop-A-Shot, or going to a carnival game and throwing darts at balloons. I mean, it's $20. You're just going to have fun and
right. So
nothing wrong with
what
that.
you're saying is like most people are going to enter basically drawing dead, like you or I would enter drawing dead, because there's going to be some guy who's just going to be 95% or something like that in his go, right?
Well, there's actually professional free throw shooting guys.
Yeah.
Never mind pros who are really good at it, right? I mean, so it's they're the contest that they're doing. I think it doesn't give the layman enough chance to win at this thing.
But the layman thinks that they have a chance, right? So like if you were the best free throw shooter among your buddies, because it's asynchronous, right? Because it's not everybody doing it at the same time, you're not necessarily aware what the best player in the field is like.
Yeah.
So
but you should be.
You sort of live in ignorance.
I guess. Some other things that are being considered: Scrabble slot machines. Which I thought was a really cool idea. Yeah.
What is that? I don't even know what that is.
Well, it's like they play. You know how you play Wheel of Fortune on the slot machine. Well, I guess this is Scrabble, so it's sort of skill based in the fact that you've got to take.
I don't know how Wheel of Fortune or Scrabble is skill based in the slot context. And like, how does it work?
Well, if it's going to be, I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but if it's used in the context of skill-based gaming and Scrabble, clearly you're going to be getting some letters, much like the Scrabble game, and trying to make a word out of it. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but it sounds fun anyway. I love Scrabble. Sure. But yeah, I mean, the problem with this whole concept is as soon as they make the prize money worth playing for, the people who are exponentially better than everybody, it makes it worthwhile for them to come in. Like,
they're just going to find the best free throw shooter in New Jersey is just going to find out about it and enter until he
win.
Has like 100%, whatever. Especially because I think you mentioned it's re-entry, basically, right?
Yeah, but
I think if you could only enter once, it wouldn't be as bad.
That's true. Yeah. What are the best games for this? Do you think? And some I thought of. The first one was putt putt. You have like a windmill and you putt for money, right? I mean, you do that with your buddies when you go anyway. What's the difference?
Skee ball
skill based, very skill based.
Yeah, for sure.
Pinball.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, with every game that you basically can play as a parlor game, right, is pretty much workable. Video games.
Yeah, a lot of video games.
We talked about esports before, obviously. Like, esports have their own league, but yeah, you can certainly video games. People think that they're the best Galaga player or whatever in the world.
I am the best in the world at one video game.
What's that?
In television baseball.
I don't know. I will play you heads up.
Nobody can beat me. Nobody ever beat me.
Do you still own it in television? I would love to play that.
I wish I did. I should go buy one. But in television, baseball was fantastic, and nobody who's under 40 is going to care at all. But there was one spot in television baseball that you could get a hit, and it was between just to the left of the pitcher. Everywhere else, that was the only place where nobody could get, and it was a home run most of the time. But that was the one thing.
By the way, here's a trivia question for you. Do you remember which game was packaged with the Intellivision?
We had this as a trivia question, I want to say, and I forget it already. No, what was it?
It was poker and blackjack. Right?
Was it really?
Yeah, like it would come. Well, at least mine did. It came with like poker and blackjack. You could play like 5-card draw, 5-card stud, or 7-card stud. Boy, the fact that the 6-year-old me played that, I'm sure has no bearing on how my life turned out.
Why you ended up being that. Yeah, it's like
6 years old, I got to play poker.
Remember Vegas Vacation? When they go into the casino and it's the games are pick a number between 1 and 10.
Yeah.
And rock, scissors, paper.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
Right, rock, scissors, paper should be. That's the good one.
That is a good one.
For you can play skill based for money because you can just randomize. But
beware of the tilt boys.
And how crazy is it that in New Jersey there's no sports betting allowed, but now you can bet on free throws?
Yeah, well, that's going to change. I mean, I would have to think that the New Jersey thing is going to change. I'm surprised too because the regulators okayed this, but I guess sports betting is such a hot. I mean, this is fundamentally sports betting where you're betting on yourself. You're just not betting on professionals, right?
Yeah.
Like that's. I mean, this is sport. I mean, if I'm having a free throw shooting contest against you, that's betting on sports. It's not betting on professional sports. It's betting on a couple idiots, but it's still sports betting, isn't it?
I think so. Indeed. All right, so that's going to wrap up our In Case You Missed It segment. We are going to come back. We're going to be joined by the one and only Alan Boston. We're sponsored by Crush Live Poker. That is our official strategy partner. This week, Bart is talking about recognizing backdoor flushes. So here he is. He's going to talk about that and give you a little tip. You're listening to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. More right after this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another 2+2 Strategy Minute brought to you by CrushLivePoker.com. I'm Bart Hansen, and today I want to talk about backdoor flushes. One of the more hidden hands you can make in No Limit Hold'em is a backdoor flush, and you can make a lot of money when someone has a second best hand when you back into a flush, because a lot of inexperienced players don't really see the backdoor flush. Now, I want to talk about today how you identify the fact that your opponent could have actually backed into a flush, and there's really an easy technique for doing that, and it has to do with looking at the distribution of flop suits. Say, for example, the board comes out Queen of Spades, Deuce of Hearts, Seven of Spades. Well, everybody sees that there's a front door spade draw. Let's say the turn is the 9 of Hearts, and the river is the 3 of Hearts. So at this point, if you look at the flop, you see that the Queen and the 7 are spades and the Deuce is a heart. So it is possible that someone could have backed into a flush with hearts with the top card on the flop. That's top pair backing into a backdoor flush. And that's really what you want to look at. You want to look at the distribution of the suits on the flop, and you want to see if it's possible that top pair could have backed into a flush. Of course, on straightening boards too that can happen, like for example, if it's Queen Deuce 3. With 2 spades and a bet and a call, and a guy calls on the turn, when a backdoor flush appears, he could easily have like a 4-5, Ace-4, Ace-5, and then back into a flush on the river where he was going to just pitch the straight draw on the turn, but because he picked up a flush draw, he continues on. Now let's get back to the Pokercast.
Hey folks, don't forget to stay connected with the Pokercast gang between shows. There's a dedicated forum on 2plus2.com where you can discuss the most recent show, request a guest, suggest topics, or just chat about bacon and titties. The Pokercast forum on 2+2. Picks or get the F out.
Under the gun opens to 3x 200 big blinds deep. I defend my big blind with queen jack off with no spades. The flop comes ace king 10 rainbow with 1 spade, and it's a flop that favors the opener's range more than mine, and it's hard for me to check raise any semi-bluff, so I check call his c-bet for deception and to protect my range. The turn is an 8 putting a flush draw out there, and this time I check raise to set it up for a pot-sized river shove. The river is the worst card in the deck, another ace, and I check with the intention of folding to a shove, but he elects not to turn 10-8 into a bluff, even though it's a great candidate with the full house blockers, and I win the pot.
Team Pro Online's Mickey Memento Mori Peterson is a Supernova VIP. This is the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club.
Hey guys, this is Bart Hansen for CrushLivePoker.com. Whether you're a recreational player who wants to compete at the tables, or you're a professional and you want to increase your win rate, the material that I've produced at CrushLivePoker.com will make you a better poker player. Act now and you can subscribe for free by using the coupon code TPC11. That's TPC for the Pokercast 11 and get your first month free.
Basketball Jones, I got a basketball Jones, got a basketball Jones, oh baby, ooh. Yes, I'm the victim of a basketball Jones. Ever since I was a little baby, I always be dribbling. In fact, I was the baddest dribbler in the whole neighborhood. Then one day, my mama bought me a basketball, and I love that basketball. I took that basketball with me everywhere I went. That basketball was like a basketball to me. I even put that basketball underneath my pillow. Maybe that's why.
Welcome back to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. Terrence, I look forward to this show every year because our old friend Alan Boston comes on to talk a little bit of sports, a little bit of poker, a little bit of old times, all kinds of stuff. Primarily the NCAA tournament, as the draw was announced on Sunday, and we're going to get his insight on some of the stuff that's going on there.
People were terrified that we weren't going to have Alan Boston on before March Madness. So
they
for
were,
sure.
And we moved the recording of our show from Thursdays to Tuesdays just to get his input and to get his first round lock of the first round out to everybody before Thursday, because I think he's perfect in all the years he's coming on with his first round lock. Alan, welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you.
I want to get right to some of the NCAA stuff before we move on to more pokerish type things. But Kentucky this year, 34-0, obviously is the big story. They have to win 6 more to have that 40-0 magical season. The amazing thing to me is they're even money to win this tournament in a 64.
That's not from this planet.
Yeah, like how crazy is that? I mean, you know, they have to win 6 games. I understand they're not playing every team, but do you make them even money?
No. Mathematically, they're probably 3.5 to 1 dog.
3.5 to 1 dog. So the
probably about that, yeah. Because they're not going to be that big a favorite in some of these games. You know, there'll be a 2.5 to 1 favorite, 3.5, 3 to. Let's say they're 3 to 1 at the least. Even if they're 3 to 1 3 times. You know, that's nice. 27 out of 64. That's 2.5 to 1. So
yeah. So it seems like
2 to 1.
Taking the field is
27 out of 64 is 2 to 1.
Yeah.
So, but they're a little more than that. You know, they're not 3 to 1 in 3 games, or they're less than 3 to 1 in a couple of those games. But you know, I'm just saying, even if upsets occur and they're actually like a 3 to 1 favorite for 3 games in a row, never mind the 1 in a million chance that they get upset in one of the other games. You know, even money's ridiculous. The only time even money's good is if they give you the option of saying no. You know, can you lay $1.30? They don't win it. And if they don't give you that option, then offering even money is a sham. So,
yeah, I'm seeing on Pinnacle that you can bet the no at minus 160. Is that something you like?
Yeah, I would lay 160. They don't win. That's not right.
Okay.
Just mathematically, it's not right. It certainly seems like they should win. It seems like they should win almost all the time, but on pure math alone, they're not minus 160 to win this. Not a chance.
Yeah, and
I think they got a pretty good draw, so maybe you know, I didn't look and see who they played, but you know, just given a couple of teams they may have to face, it even if it's just like Duke and Arizona, just on those two alone, they're more than a minus 1. They're not 160 to beat both them, so they're a little more than that.
Yeah, you were mentioning their draw, Alan, and their second seed in their side, they beat by 30 points or something. So it seems like they've got an easy road to the Final Four almost.
Yeah, I don't. Let me see. I got a bracket up here actually. Let me see. Kentucky. Kansas. Kansas will get knocked out. Yeah, they gave Kentucky a very easy road here. Kansas is not a 2 seed. They were more a 3 or a 4 seed. But that's the problem with the way the whole thing's set up, which we don't need to get into. It's a poker show, but the whole thing is a sham. The whole thing is just, they don't go there to set up a fair tournament. They go there to see how much money they can generate for CBS and the others of that ilk. That thing you sent me, the
John Oliver this last week tonight did it. Yeah,
unbelievably funny and dead on. It's funny, but it's dead on. So it's actually kind of sad.
Yeah,
and that's it in a nutshell.
He did a great job with
given he proves all these things in that 25 minutes of brilliance, it's not hard to take it from there to think that this whole draw is rigged, which I've been saying for 15 years now, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. So, yeah, this whole thing is created to make money, not to create a fair tournament. Witness that their supposed last team in was Dayton, and they gave them a home game. Now, why'd they give them a home game? Well, these first 4 games have not drawn well over the years. So if you put Dayton in at their home arena, they'll probably draw some fans and make some money. It's always about money, isn't it? Sad.
So that's
sad.
amazing to me.
Amateur sports. This is really sad.
You mentioned that they haven't drawn well in the first round, and this March Madness in the U.S., for those that aren't in the U.S., it's really hard to understand just how big this is. It's as big as the Super Bowl almost. I mean, it's this massive event, and it doesn't draw.
The gap quickly. If it hasn't passed it yet, it will soon.
And it doesn't draw the first round. Like, they're half-empty stadiums. I don't get that.
Just for the first round.
Yeah, just for the first round. But, you would think that and the first rounders are where some of the most entertaining games happen, it seems like. You get a 12 seed every year upsetting somebody. I mean, you see some fun games. I want to just quickly get your take. You mentioned it, how they decide this thing without talking. We did talk about it last year, but how do you think it should be done is my question to you, Alan.
Yeah, I actually created a bracket for ESPN Insider where I just very pragmatically took the teams that got in via, the teams that got an automatic bid. I put them in there, and then I took the next 36 teams rated in my power ratings, and that would be one way of doing it. But you could tweak that and maybe make some rules where, all right, let's take the top 36 teams on someone's power ratings, and they can't have a losing record either overall or in their conference. Something to that effect would be fair, because you want the best teams in there. You don't want the subjective. For instance, the committee they were particularly offended by UCLA, who doesn't have any good wins this year, making the tournament. It turns out, that I think they belong in a tournament because their power rating warrants it. They would be one of the lower teams in, but they warrant being in this tournament. But by what the committee looks at, wins over top teams and wins on the road, UCLA doesn't have any of those. So when those idiots who do the selection show got the commissioner on there, the guy who runs the committee, they asked him about UCLA, and they said, well, they finished with a full head of steam. And then when he was asked that by another group of people, you said UCLA finished by a full head of steam, yet they finished 4-3 to end the year. Puts a damper on his statement.
Yeah.
He said, well, they met the eye. They fit the eye.
What?
Right.
What does that even mean?
So by eyeballing the way they play, they were good enough by what people saw. Well, I mean, fuck that. That's like just pure bullshit. That just means, well, we like the way we play, so they're in. So now you're just throwing out all your criteria and just tossed it out the window. And, like I said, they do what they want, and there's no checks and balances. It's just, we're going to do what the hell we want, and that's it. And fuck you to the rest of the world. And, they do it behind closed doors. So you don't know what the hell they're even saying. And I actually, on my Twitter, I did my sample. Here's what I think goes on at the committee, and I did that. And I was dead serious. I mean, I was trying to be a little funny, but I was dead serious. I think they go in there. All right, which mid-majors are threats to our big boys here, threats to our moneymakers, and what can we do to get them out of this tournament? And from there, they create their bracket. They just fill in the rest later. And to me, 100%, that's what goes on. And that's kind of disgusting and kind of sad.
It is.
But
indeed.
I believe with all my heart that 100% that's what they do. Because you just can't have mid-major versus mid-major all the time, randomly done, and you can't have every team that's misseeded. And I mean, like, Ohio State should no way be a 10 seed. They're more like a 4 or 5 seed. But they're a 10 seed playing Virginia Commonwealth, who's one of the mid-majors, who's a big threat to go all the way. And Texas, who, although they had a bad year and by their criteria, maybe shouldn't even be in the tournament because they were like, I don't know what they were in their conference, but they're losing record in their conference, which would eliminate them from my criteria. They're certainly better than Oklahoma State and several others that they had in there, but they're an 11 seed. And who are they playing? Well, they're playing Butler, the all-time darling of the mid-major. So, when it just can't be by chance that when they put a 5 seed, a 10 seed, and put a 6 seed, an 11 seed, and voila, they're playing a mid-major. It just can't be. It's got to be done intentionally. So, with all my heart, I believe they just rig it. And they rig it to try to get the money to the right places. And that really is sad, given that these are kids who might be their only time there. There's coaches whose jobs are on the line. Never mind that they fucked all the mid-majors from getting in. Murray State was good enough to get in. Temple was certainly good enough to get in. Colorado State was good enough to get in. And yet they let this crap in like Indiana and Oklahoma State, teams that lost every game down the stretch. You read the newspapers, well, we got to win today to pad our resume. We got to win today to get in. And they lose and lose and lose. And it's like a carnival game, just pitch till you win. Well, Indiana never won. They never won one game they had to win. And Oak State never won one game they had to win. And here comes selection day, and not only are they in, but they're in with a 9 seed and a 10 seed. Well, Dayton's the last team in for, making the conference tournament final and finishing like second in their conference or third in their conference, which is a very good conference, the Atlantic 10. So the way this whole thing is done is either they have some fundamental flaws in the way they do it, or they have flaws and they rig it. And I think the latter is what's true. I think there's some fundamental flaws that don't allow them to get it right. And then they make sure it's rigged to get their boys the money. And that's it. I'm done with that. I don't talk about that anymore.
Okay, fair enough. I wanted to ask you about teams that should have made it, but I think you hit that. A couple. Are there any others?
Colorado State, Temple, Murray State. Those are the three most egregious fuckings. I think Miami of Florida I have rated really high, but they won in Duke, Miami. I mean, they're like 11-5 on the road. So in that regard, they did what the committee likes. Winning in Duke is like never happens. So they should have got a lot of credit for that. They almost won in Notre Dame. They had some very, very good wins. They had some injuries during the year, which committee sometimes gives you a pass when you have some injuries. So Miami of Florida should have been in too.
Okay.
The highest rated team that was left out, interestingly enough, is Florida, who was completely crippled the entire year and finally got healthy at the end of the year and unluckily faced Kentucky in the second round. They don't deserve to be in because I think they may have even had a losing record in the SEC. So that would eliminate them. And they had a lot of losses during the year, a lot of bad losses. Miami probably didn't get in because they lost to Eastern Kentucky at home by about 30, which was just brutal. And they lost some games down the stretch that maybe prevented them from getting in. However, Miami against Oklahoma State on a neutral court, and if it's pick, I'm betting Miami, and I'm betting a lot. Okay. Miami against Indiana on a neutral court, and it's pick, I'm betting Miami at Florida, I'm betting a lot. And that's why it aggravates me so much, because I actually do know how good these teams are. It's what I've done for a living for 26 years. And given that I really do know who's best, it offends me to no end when these people think they know who's best and then go and fuck it all up all the time. And anyway, I really overreact to this for sure. But I was a fan first. I'm a big fan of college basketball, and to see it go down the drain because of this $1 billion television contract and the billions of dollars in commercials they sell and all the money the schools get, which supposedly the nonprofit schools, by the way, bullshit. Yeah. That guy exposed that really well. That was great.
John Oliver. He said,
that was great.
We need a stadium really beside our stadium. that was funny.
Does he do that show all the time?
He does, yeah, each week. It's called This Week, Last Week, or Last Week, This Week. There's some great ones in there. Go back, scroll through his YouTube videos. You'll howl at some of them. But I wanted to just quickly go back to that Florida argument. When you say Florida against Oklahoma State, I mean, is it the best team right now, or the best team has earned their way in over the year? I understand they had injuries and stuff, but are you saying that the team that is best right now should be in?
Miami of Florida had the next to Florida, who couldn't make it, but Miami of Florida had the highest rating of a team that was left out by my power ratings.
Right.
And they lost in 2 overtimes to Virginia, and they won in Duke, and they beat NC State, and they won in Syracuse. They had a lot of good wins. But, maybe losing at Florida State, losing at home to Louisville, and losing at Wake Forest probably cost them a chance to get in. They had some bad losses, and, when they lost to North Carolina, they had a bunch of guys out, and that didn't help. And they probably needed to beat Notre Dame in their conference tournament.
Fair enough. Notre Dame seems to be a Cinderella that everybody's talking about.
I don't know if they're a Cinderella. They had a great year. But Yeah, they run beautiful offense, but Mike Bray is not the best of coaches, and I think they tend to struggle in the NCAA tournament. They're not the greatest defensive team in the world, and he really is not a great coach, and he gets outcoached a lot in some of these tournament games, and I don't think they'll get far, but I think they might even lose in the first round. I think Northeastern has a very good chance to beat them. Coming off winning the ACC tournament makes this game a very difficult game to play. They played the ACC tournament. They played 4 games in 4 days, I think. Or was it 3 games in 3 days? Anyway, they beat Duke and North Carolina back-to-back, which is, and Miami from way ahead there. So it was 3 games in 3 days. They beat 3 top caliber teams in 3 days and finally won this ACC tournament. It was like the home run of all home runs, and now they got to face this senior-dominated, extremely well-coached team that's hard to deal with, although, Notre Dame talent-wise lays over them talent-wise. Sometimes lesser talent can win with smarts, and Northeastern's one smart team and doesn't do anything to get themselves beat. So if Notre Dame takes them lightly, which I think they might, just subconsciously, it's going to be a hard game for them to get motivated for. They know they're a 12.5-point favorite. They see it in the newspaper. They know it's friggin' Northeastern. Who the hell are they? We just beat North Carolina and Duke. How are we not going to beat Northeastern?
Yeah.
So they're coming off this high of all highs, winning the prestigious ACC tournament for the first time ever. It's just a very, very difficult game. They had to go back to Notre Dame, and now they get 1 day to practice. They gave them next day off because they needed it, and now they have 1 day to practice, and they have to travel to the site of the game. So they haven't had a lot of time to get ready for Notre Dame, and subconsciously it's going to be a hard game for them to get really amped up for, and this is not the right team to let up against. So they could be gone in the first round.
You mentioned coaching, Alan. I want to get your quick take on this. What's coaching? Is there a way to quantify what it's worth? And if you have 2 equal teams and you have the best coach versus the worst coach, what do you think it's worth? Is there a way to tell that, or do you?
No, I just know that I have an edge, and if the game is priced fairly, then I bet it. I think it especially matters in a game where they have 3-4 days to prepare. Then the good coach could really get creative and make life miserable for the lesser coach. Yes, it's all in the power rating of the coaching at some point. So teams I have rated even, it's known that the good coach has elevated their rating and the bad coach maybe has dropped theirs. But smart versus not so smart. The smart team's going to win all the time, even with less talent, because they're not going to turn it over. They're going to take good shots. They're going to treasure each possession, which is so important in this one and done thing. You can't get down there and just take the first shot available or take a bad shot when maybe you can work the clock a little longer and get a better one. And, you take bad shots, you miss because you could have done better. And, eventually the game will get away from you and you're out of the tournament. So I can't quantify anything. I've just always gone by, it's Stu Morrill against, Mike Bray, and I'm going to take Stu Morrill all the time. Given the point spread is fair. Gotcha. They don't give you that anymore. They don't give you the dumb coach, smart coach, because they rig the draw, and they very well know what they're doing. That's how Stephen Austin ended up facing Utah, because Utah should not be a 5 seed under any circumstances. They're like a 3 seed, maybe a 4 seed at the worst. Certainly not a 5 seed. There aren't 16 teams better than Utah in this country by anyone's ratings. But they had to find a way to get Stephen Austin out of here. And all right, well, let's drop Utah to a 5 seed. Utah is a very, very well-coached team. They play with a lot of intelligence. They may be the one team that can handle the Stephen Austin's brilliance. Stephen Austin is one of the best coached teams in the country. I watched them play Northern Iowa. It was extremely well played by both ends of the court. And they beat BCU last year in the first round of the tournament. And, this is a better team than last year's team. So they're definitely a threat to knock someone out. So they got to find someone to knock them out. There's no mid-major they can pit them against because there's no mid-major rated that high. So they have to find a major team, and there was no major team good enough to knock them out. So they'll take someone who doesn't belong as a 5 seed and stick them as a 5 seed. And they found a smart 3 seed to be lowered to a 5 seed to be able to handle the smarts of Stephen Austin. So that's how that matchup came down. I got away from the topic, but
that's okay.
I had to get that in because that offended me so much.
Yeah,
I'm not the only one that's offended by this, by the way. There's other people who know what they're doing, who commented either on my Twitter or talk to me directly and say, "Do you believe what these assholes are doing? You know, this is really disgusting." And you know, one kid even told me I didn't sleep. And he's a real basketball fan, and real basketball fans who understand really what went on here are horrified. It's hard to be a fan of this. It really is. As big as it's gotten, it's ruined it at the same time. That's the irony of it.
There's a lot of people out there, Alan, filling out their brackets. Maybe you can give them a quick. I wonder if we talked about Kentucky off the top, but it doesn't seem like there's any point when you're filling out your bracket to have Kentucky running away and winning it, because everybody in the country is going to be doing that. No,
so what you do is hope Wichita State can beat them. I think Wichita State has a good chance to. They'll definitely beat Indiana. They have a very good chance to beat Kansas. And then it's the Butler, Texas, Notre Dame, Northeastern quadrant, which is pretty wide open. All those teams are pretty good. Texas is clueless, so I would never want them. But Butler's superbly coached and has done good things in this tournament for many, many years. This is a very good team they have, too. So they're definitely a threat to get through that bracket. A Butler-Wichita State game would be amazing. In fact, you probably couldn't do better. Two of the best coach teams with talent in the country. It would be an amazing game if it came to that. But, Wichita State maybe is the one team that is smart enough to maybe get Kentucky beat. I don't think so. Kentucky is just so talented that all the stupid things they do are negated by the sheer talent they have. An NBA scout who I have a friend that's friendly with a guy who's presently an NBA scout. He's working in the NBA now. Says Kentucky has 9 pros on the team. 9.
What?
9. You know how much fucking money it cost them to get those 9 kids there?
Holy man.
They paid untold amounts of money to get those kids there. That's also the way it works, which is kind of sad. The AAU coaches scored out with Kentucky and these kids. But, that's the way it is, and it's worth it to pay that money. Because look at all the money the school's going to make. I'm not saying the school's paying them. Of course they're not. But, a booster gets to hold the AAU coach. By the way, get this kid here, and, we'll make sure that you're awarded. And then it's a bidding war, and I was offered such and such. This is what happens. I'm not saying anything that's surprising to people really in the know, and it's disgusting, right? It really is. I mean, these are fucking college kids. These are high school kids at the time.
Yeah,
and they're just fucking with their lives. It sucks. The whole thing is reprehensible, but that's the way it works. So anyway, given that Kentucky has that much talent, even though the coach is kind of shaky at best, he's really kind of a clown. Their talent allows them to overcome a lot of the stupidity. And really, it's just, you can't, they have 9 pros on the team. They have like a pro basketball team.
It's crazy. That is nuts. It sounds like their bench would be in the tournament.
Yes, absolutely. Their bench would make the tournament, yes, and probably as a good seed.
How different is betting on these games, Alan? I know you bet all year round in the beginning of the year, where you can pick and choose from games that don't have real deep markets to betting on these games where the markets tend to be really deep. Now I understand they're probably not all educated. The people are putting money down, but the line is still going to probably be a little bit more accurate than it would be during the regular season. Am I right?
The one thing about the NCAA tournament was it's kind of it's like a new season, so everyone's starting 0-0. The one good thing about the NCAA tournament is you're going to get a very true result, right? I mean, these guys are going to battle right to the bitter end. It's their one day in the limelight, and they're not going to ever give up. So you get true results for the most part. If a team's 5 better, they're going to win by around 5, given that they play to their abilities. And that's the good thing, because if you make a good bet, you're probably going to win it. You're probably not going to have some, nonsense like at the end of some game where, a team just 12-0s them, where they just, kind of give up and start following recklessly, and that tends not to happen in the NCAA tournament. The other thing is that the public actually affects the line somewhat, especially here in Vegas, where I am, where tourists from all over the planet are coming into town to bet the NCAA tournament. So occasionally there are good numbers available out here that wouldn't be there during the year, because the public actually has a little bit of an influence on the line. And that's the only time during the year that the public has any influence on a college basketball line, or on any line for that matter. Anyone who thinks the public has an influence on a line just doesn't know what they're talking about. It's all wise guys. It's all guys who know who move the line. Because basically, if someone walks up to a counter who is nobody and bets, they sometimes don't even move it. Like even some of these offices that are off screen, certain accounts, they're not going to even move the line if they bet the limit, while certain accounts, they'll move it aggressively if they know what you're doing. So this is the one time a year where the public has some influence in the line, so you can get a little value that way too. And sometimes because it is a new season, they react a little bit too much to a team having an extraordinary game, which also creates a chance to make a bet. So and there's some situations, you play a real hard game on Thursday, you got to come back on Saturday. When you're the underdog, sometimes that affects you a little bit. There's things to look for that work too. So the NCAA tournament typically has been a good gamble. I can't say I've done well with it though. The last few years, I haven't.
Well, you have done well with
your
lock of the week, or your lock of the first round has done quite well that you give out on our show. Are you ready to do that this year?
Yeah, I'll what am I going to give you?
All right, give us your lock of the first round, Alan.
Yeah, let me see here. I got a playing game I like a lot, but that's not really a first round game. I like Boise +4 against Dayton a lot. I think they're going to win the game. I know it's on Dayton's home floor, but I think that'll work in Boise's favor where, they really, really don't deserve to be there. And I think they're going to play like, fuck you, we'll show you that you're giving us some road game that after we win the Mountain West Conference, we win the Mountain West Conference and you're giving us some fucking road game. Are you crazy? So let's go with Georgia State +9 against Baylor.
Georgia State +9.
Yeah, Ron Hunter, really good coach, and Scott Drew, really bad coach. Georgia State did not play well in their conference tournament, even though they won it. They won the last game 38-36. It's like a 6.5-point favorite. So it wasn't a good showing. They didn't play well either. I mean, my friend watched the game, was shocked at how many bad shots they took. But all that being said, this is a different game, and a team that hasn't seen Georgia State much is going to have a hard time with some of the stuff that they do. And yes, Baylor is super athletic, but they're also pretty stupid. And I think Georgia State will take advantage of that stupidity and has a very good chance to win this game. So we'll go with Georgia State +9 against Baylor. I will say this is not as strong as some of the years past locks that I've given out, or number one bets. Let's say locks are for touts, and I'm not a fucking tout.
No, for sure. Okay, that's your best bet of the first round. Yeah. Georgia State +9 against Baylor. You also like Boise State, you mentioned, but that's not. That's
I think that's a good. I think it's a really good bet too, but it's not really it's a play-in game, which of course should be illegal. But I've made my point. I think
Fair
maybe
enough.
Too much.
I want to get to some poker stuff. I know I've talked to you a little bit on...
Me and poker? Wow. I'm about to become a poker player.
I know, that's what I want to ask you about. You're at the Commerce, you're playing some 7 stud. Give us the game. The 7 stud game still really good at the Commerce?
I was trying to sell my house all summer, and there was no takers, and I'm really miserable because I really want out, and I can't afford the place anymore, and the price kept dropping and dropping and dropping. And my buddy knew I was ready to commit Harry Carey. So he says, come on, we're going away. I said, I really can't afford to go away. He says, well, I'm going away. I'm taking you. So we went to Santa Monica to see Friday Night Fights. He's friends with Teddy Atlas, who's the boxing commentator for ESPN, a real stand-up guy, a real great guy. I love him. And I was honored. I was starstruck really to meet and have dinner with Teddy.
Awesome commentator, Teddy Atlas.
Fantastic. Yeah. Brilliant guy. And he's even better as a human. I mean, he goes broke supporting his charities, which are built in the inner city. He builds them where they need it. He actually does charity. He supports his charities to no end, and to the point where he spends his own money on it. And that's the real deal charity, where he's not out there bragging about, by the way, I blew my paycheck because we needed a new computer at the club.
Yeah.
It's he's the real deal.
So he's not even on his Wikipedia.
Not like the Market Dimes, whose CEO is making over $1 million. He's making nothing and doing something. So
yeah, it's not very well known because it's not even on his Wikipedia page. I didn't even know that about him, and it's not even on his page or anything.
Basically, his life.
So right. No self promotion at all.
Did some charity work, and he's carried that through. But my friend has been to his clubs. They're just in really tough neighborhoods, and he's revered there. I mean, he's just he's the real deal. That's it. He's the real deal as a boxing commentator. He's the real deal as a human being, and he's a total straight shooter. There's no gray areas with him. Either you do the right thing or you don't. If you say you don't do the right thing and have some excuse, the excuse is just pure bullshit. And we kind of go by the same rules of living. So we definitely got along, and I was really, people's jaws drop. I was like, wow, I'm with Teddy Atlas. It really felt like a big deal. But he's not like that at all. You would never get that vibe from him. Anyway, so we went dinner with Teddy Atlas, and he took me to the Commerce. And I played 30-60 stud. I was in the must-move game, and it basically broke down to me and some other guy. And he said, well, I said, do you want to play heads up? He said, okay. I said, well, you're not going to win, You can't possibly beat me heads up. He said, well, we'll see about that. And, he didn't win, of course. And then the game built up again, and then it was my turn to move, and I got in the main game. Long story short, I played 2 sessions, and in 5 hours, I won like 3,600, which for 30-60 stud is pretty
That's hard.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I actually got sucked out on the biggest pot I played, where, it was like 3 and 4 bet every single street. And the guy filled up on the river, which, I knew I had him, but I had like a straight flush draw and then made the flush. And I was not dogging a straight flush draw. Even, I'm a dog against a set, but he happened to have 2 pair, which is exactly what I thought he had. And it's what he did have. And anyway, so losing the biggest pot of the night, I still won 3,600 in 5 hours. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And the players were so bad. I mean, like the first time I played stud, I probably would have been a favorite in this game, not even knowing anything about the game, just on the logic. It was incredible. And the amount of money there, like a friend came over who I played stud with in Vegas for years. He moved out to California because the stud games are so much better. And he said, well, he's number 3 in the room. I said, number 3 what? He said, number 3 money-wise. He had them ranked as far as how much wealth they had. It was just insane. Like, I'm playing with multimillionaires who, don't give a shit about, the 30-60 game there. A lot of them were there to have fun. They were all gentlemen. There was no needling except maybe yours truly might have been a little brutal at times, but that's the way I used to play. It was always fun to, make fun of somebody or laugh at them or needle them if they lost a tough pot, or if you beat them a pot, like just abuse them. And that was old school poker in Vegas in the 80s, maybe the 70s and 80s. Actually, the 70s it is cheated, and you had to be in the cheating side or not. But in the 80s, that was how we played. Just and if it got under your nerves, too bad. You shouldn't be playing. But everyone was really nice, and everyone played bad. So what could be better?
So you're going to become a poker player now?
I think I'm going to move to Connecticut. I don't want to be in the West Coast. When my dad got sick, and I knew he was sick, but it turned for the worse very suddenly, and I never got to say goodbye to him. And 3,000 miles away, I couldn't get there in time when they told me you better get back here, and I didn't get back there in time. And I'm not going to let that happen again. And so I'm going to move closer to home. And Foxwoods has very good 7-card stud games. I don't think they'll be as good as the Commerce, but I think I'm good enough where I don't really care who I'm playing against. Put 7 Phil Ivies at the table, and I don't care. I'll play him, and I think I'd win. So I'm not being an egomaniac. I'm just stating what I believe, which, you have to have confidence in what you're doing if you're going to be a winner. So I have a lot of confidence in my 7-stud game. And you know what? I credit No Limit Hold'em for that, because when I played on full tilt as the full tilt red player, I don't consider myself a pro because I've never been a pro poker player. So that, that learn, chat, and play with the pros bullshit that they used to promulgate, where most of their red players kind of sucked, actually. A lot of them sucked. A lot of them were really bad. I don't know how they got to be red players, but I abused them too. When I taught this kid how to play poker, and then he got a lot better than me, and he taught me, I took some of his concepts from No Limit Hold'em and said, you know what? A lot of the stuff that's in stud is in No Limit Hold'em. It doesn't seem like it should be, but it's all the same. And so why not? Why not, raise more often? And I tweaked my stud game, and I made it a lot better, I think, because of some of what we talked about in No Limit Hold'em. So, online poker is I remember the argument with the old school guys who made fun of the online kids, but the fact was the online kids are getting, hundreds of thousands of reps, and they're playing, 5 hands a half hour. So, who's going to be better?
Yeah, no question.
You practice your golf swing 100,000 reps a day, it's going to be better than the guy who practices for 10 minutes. So,
indeed,
it was online poker was was where it's at to get better at poker. And the online kids were always laid over the old guard, as far as I'm concerned. And as a result, I always thought I was a good stud player, but I got better. And that's fun. It's fun to tweak things, and you think you know it all, but I wasn't even close. Yeah. So I think I'm going to do well as a 7-card stud pro at Foxwoods. I'd be very surprised if I didn't earn a good living.
You mentioned
if I can stomach it, if I can stomach being in that fucking place for 8 hours a day for 3-4 days a week, whatever I decide.
Oh, the Commerce is a tough place to do that in for sure, but who knows?
The food's amazing, though. Like I said, the food was amazing, and the players were fun. They were nice guys.
Really?
I wouldn't have a problem playing at Foxwoods, to be honest with you.
Oh, Foxwoods.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking about Commerce. If you're talking about the Commerce, I was going to be shocked.
I thought he was talking about the Commerce, too. I was like, wow, that turned around in a hurry.
Yeah.
No, I like the Commerce. I did. I maybe I get sick of it because it's but when you're in there and the food was, I had this avocado shake, man. It was unbelievable. Like, where did they come up with this? The food was fantastic, and the players were friendly. I don't, the vibe was fine by me. I ignored the fact that it's kind of a dump, but the bathrooms are clean. What more can you ask for?
An avocado shake and clean bathrooms is really.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Yeah, avocado shake and clean bathrooms. There you go.
I want to. You mentioned Stewie in past shows that we've had you on. You had some interaction with Stewie Ungar. Of course, I'm talking about Stewie Ungar. I'm wondering do you have any memories of him? I know he didn't do too well, sports betting or betting on golf or whatever. But I'm just wondering maybe what you think about when you think about Stewie.
I think of my first thought is how misunderstood he was, and how I'm so sad that his upbringing sucked so bad that it got in the way of his life. I'm sad that he got so that he couldn't deal with reality of living this existence, and did everything he could to duck it, and never talked to me about what was eating him up. And maybe I wasn't old enough to really get it out of him then, but we were good friends, and to see him deteriorate the way he did was extremely painful. And I never really got a goodbye. And so you're hitting a real tough spot. Stewie was completely brilliant, and it was because of his upbringing. I think I talked about this the first show I was on. The only thing he knew was gin rummy. I had a friend who was at his bar mitzvah, and at his bar mitzvah, he pulled out all the envelopes, which had the money in it, and said, "I'll play anyone in here for all these envelopes." So Stewie never changed. He was always this manic, I'll do anything for anything, and I'll do anything for any amount of money at any time. That was his persona, because ordinary life just didn't give him enough pizzazz. He became the best at gin, and then when he became the best at poker, he had nowhere to go because that's all he knew.
Yeah.
So where do you go when you're already the best at something and you know nothing else? There was nothing else to get him interested. So he had to self-destruct to make life interesting. That's totally my opinion, but I think logically it's dead on. That everyday life offered no challenges to him, and he couldn't find some other avenue to be challenged, because that's all he knew was cards. That's all he knew was games. And it's just sad that I wasn't mature enough to get to talk to him as a friend should have. When his demise started, I had no idea how far gone he was, because he was just hiding somewhere. I did get a call one day when I was playing poker, Boston, can you leave me 2,000? And it was Stewie. And it was actually really kind of sad. I said, of course, Stewie, anything you want. And, I left the 2,000 with Donna Harris, who was running the Mirage Poker Room with the Rhine. And Donna, who had answered the phone and gave it to me, said, "I'm really sorry, Boston," because she understood that this this 2,000 was just going to shit. Who knows? It wasn't going to anything that was anything purposeful, like paying a bill or buying food or getting his kid something. It was probably just going to drugs or, a hotel room where whatever he did. And that, I'm sorry, Boston, that thing right there where she wasn't really a fan of mine anyway, for her to understand that this is really kind of shitty, is Stewie in a nutshell. It's actually a really sad demise for someone who, had he been able to hang in there like for another year or so, poker exploded.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was going to ask next. I was going to say,
Stewie would have been the automatic guy to be the man, right?
Yeah.
And he loved the limelight. He would have found a way, look, I'm the best and I'm going to prove to everybody I'm the best. And, if someone came along that got better than him because they played online and figured out things, Stewie would have beaten him eventually anyway, just because Stewie's mind was just so amazing. He once gave me a gin problem, and I can't remember the problem, but it involved 3 plays where the other person threw 2 cards and I threw 1 card. So there were 3 picks of the deck, and I threw a card and he picked from the deck and he threw a card, and then and he asked me what 4 cards must the guy have, and I thought about it, and after a minute and a half, I told him, and he jumped out of his chair. Boston Al, that's great. No one's ever got that before. He said, but I figured it out on my own. And I'm like, yeah, all right, thanks. So as he was playing, he laid out the parameters of this logic problem to me. And at the time, my brain was very, very good. My IQ was to the moon. And, I came out to Vegas to try out for Jeopardy, which was in nearby LA. And I'm in Boston. I'm 3,000 miles away. Now I'm close by. I never did try out, but that was my intent, because I used to run Jeopardy categories. In fact, Stewie and I watched Jeopardy every night. That was our little thing. We'd sit there and talk and watch Jeopardy all night. But Stewie laid out the parameters of his logic problem, which a minute and a half later, a guy who was really smart got it. And he's there, I figured it out on my own. So he knew as he was playing the game, he figured out how to know what the guy had. And I think what he did was, and I knew this from the kid who, when he started going nuts, his bipolar started showing, he started telling me about the TV screens that flash poker hands. And when he knew the right TV screen showed up, he'd say, that's it. And that's when I knew that Stewie probably put some sort of graph in his head. So he had a graph of clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds, and he had a graph of, 2 through ace through king, something like that. And if the guy threw a 9, Stewie would cross all the 9s out, because the guy didn't have 3 9s in his hand. He probably didn't have 2 9s in his hand because he threw a 9. And in gin, you're trying to build 3s, right?
Yeah.
He also, if he threw the 9 of spades, he probably didn't have the 8 of spades or the 10 of spades in his hand. So you could throw that off your graph. And eventually this graph would be X'd off with all the cards that Stewie both saw and threw. He took inferences from what the guy threw and from what he threw and the guy didn't pick up. And eventually the guy's hand was pictured on this graph. And Stewie had the ability, as he did that as a kid, to picture the guy's hand. And in fact, he knew what cards were in the deck at the end, and he knew what the guy had almost all the time. And that's why no one could ever beat him at gin, because no one had that talent to take that graph and X off cards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that was actually what I kind of taught Mitch, who was the kid who was the best known holder player I ever watched. He went from very ordinary to very great as his illness got crazier and crazier. He got crazier and crazier, but more creative poker-wise, and it was just unbelievable to watch. What they don't have is really more important than what they do have, right? Because what they don't have, if you know they don't have the nuts, you can probably bluff them off the hand. If you put a big bet out there and they don't have, one of the stronger hands, based on the play that's happened either pre-flop or what's transpired pre-flop or post-flop, you can probably bluff them or make their lives miserable and make it hard on them. And, once you understand that, the game becomes, I think that's what a lot of the kids did at the beginning, really. They put some big bets out there in the river, and if, they knew you had like ace king and, the board's king jack 9-8-7, well, you're folding. That's too tough a call to call a big bet with, ace king on a king jack 9-8-7 board, where there's just so many hands that beat you. And anyway, so Stewie was great at No Limit for that reason. He understood aggression 1 before anybody. He understood the power of stealing the antes in tournaments when no one else did. He was just ahead of the field all the time because his mind was so logical and had the ability to picture things that other people couldn't. And I'm sorry I got so long-winded, but that was the brilliance of Stewie, and that was the sadness of Stewie, is that's all he had going for him. He had other things going for them. He had a great personality. He was very, very quick-witted, very funny, very smart, and very easy to like. But he never let those things resonate. He never let those things be relevant, and that's really sad. So when I think of Stewie, I get very sad because it was something that didn't need to happen, probably. And he was only like 6 months away from finding a reason to be when poker boomed.
thought that Stewie was sort of the internet kid before there was the internet kids. You know, we talk about all the super aggressive internet kids, and I think you just nailed it on the head. He realized how important it was to steal antes and put pressure on people and all that kind of stuff. He was really just ahead of his time, and I don't know whether he would have dominated, you know, in the 2000s and the 2010s the way he did in the 90s and early 2000s. But
there was too many people for him to dominate like that. But he would have been the best, I assure you. No one can think like him, and the kids learn from him, right? If you're a kid and you're going to be a poker player, well, Stewie was the best. That's what everyone says, right? So let's go find some YouTube video on Stewie. Yeah. And you watch the YouTube video, and there's one YouTube video of Stewie where Gabe Kaplan made fun of him for some play he made, and Stewie said, number one, who the fuck are you to tell me, you know, what's right and wrong? And number two, I knew he didn't have an ace. And the flop was like ace-7 deuce. So if he doesn't have an ace, he's not likely to have deuce-7 or deuce-5 or whatever the hell it was. You know, he had some strange hand, and he happened to have two pair, and he had Stewie beat. And Stewie, you know, didn't get him off this hand because the guy had a much stronger hand. But Stewie said, I knew he didn't have an ace. Probably because the guy limped and then called a raise or something like that, which means he probably doesn't have an ace, right? You limp and then call a raise, you don't have an ace. And once he doesn't have an ace, Stewie's going to try to take this pot away from him because the flop had an ace on it. And if you're an internet kid and hear that, well, Stewie knew he didn't have an ace. Well, you know, the board runs out 5, 6, 7, 8, king. Well, I know he doesn't have a 9 because he raised up front pre-flop and he's a tight player. Unless he has 2 9s, he probably doesn't have a 9. So, or a 4. So I can get him off this hand, you know. And I'm sure that they actually learned from Stewie how to be aggressive appropriately. And that's what I would have done if I was a kid.
No question. Alan, we do a thing with our guests lately. We ask them, we tailor some quiz questions for them, and Terrence and I bet on how many you're going to get right. You up for it?
Okay, my mind doesn't work as well, but go ahead.
Terrence, I'm going to set the line. You can see the questions, right, Terrence? I'm going to set the line. Can you?
I
guess I replied to one email. You said, did I see the quiz? And the answer was no. I have not seen anything.
Oh, no, you haven't. So. I'm just, I was wondering if you were okay with it. But that's so.
Oh, yeah, I'm okay. I don't mind making a fool out of myself.
Okay. There's 4 questions tailored for you. I'm going to set the line, Terrence. A couple of them are pretty tough. I'm gonna say 2.5.
I'm gonna say
I don't know. I don't know the answers to any of these questions. And I don't know Alan as well as you, and you wrote the question. So this is by far the most rigged thing I've ever participated in. By far. So the guy wrote the questions, picked the guest.
Knows the guest.
Yeah. So I will take under, but I basically just am flipping.
Okay.
I'm betting under 2.
He's betting under 2.5. We're betting $20.
So here's what you could know. And I went to the University of Pennsylvania, graduated. So I at one time my IQ was okay, and
they're good.
You know, I've abused drugs in my life, so my brain is probably whittled down a little bit. And lately, my life has sucked, so I'm not in a good place, and that's probably not going to help my thinking either. So I'm going under for sure. Right now, where I'm at in life, I'm not thinking I'm going to do too good.
The question number 1, sticking with the Stewie theme, who played Stewie in the movie High Roller?
Oh, it was that kid from that show I don't watch, that Italian show there. I don't know his name, Valenti or something. I don't know.
Michael Imperioli from The Sopranos.
I had the right idea. I had the right show, right?
You were down the right lane there. In what year did Penn last win a tournament game?
Who?
Penn.
You Penn?
Yeah.
1995?
1994, sir.
94. They beat Nebraska. I don't remember what year it was. Oh,
1994.
Well, close.
There goes my $20. At least it didn't take too long. In what states does the Appalachian Trail start and end?
It probably starts in Maine, and let's say it ends in Virginia.
Georgia.
Georgia. It goes all the way down there. All right. That's true. It's like Boone, North Carolina. Boone, North Carolina's in the Appalachian Trail. I should have got that one. That one I should have got. I didn't take enough time on that one. That one I blew. That one I actually could have got.
That one you would have got? Okay. Right. The last one, Queen had a number 1 single which went platinum. It was number 1 in the Billboard and also went platinum. Which song was that?
Queen. Probably Bohemian Rhapsody.
That's what I thought. It's actually Another One Bites the Dust.
We Are the Champions?
No, Another One Bites the Dust.
Another One Bites the Dust, really?
Yeah. Yeah, crazy.
It's like one of the worst songs.
Yeah, I want to thank you again, by the way.
Bohemian Rhapsody was played nonstop, like on the radio.
Yeah, I think Wayne's World brought that one back. Wayne's World was one of the reasons.
Right, and they brought it back. But when I was a kid, that was the one that was played and played and played and played and played.
Yeah.
Like Another One Bites the Dust didn't get the play time that Bohemian Rhapsody did. I assure you of that. So that's a big surprise. All right, so I went 0 for.
You went 0 for,
so
but that's okay. We got our money's worth. By the way, I want to thank you for taking me to that Queen gig that you did. That was fantastic.
Yeah, Adam Lambert's unbelievable. Huh? He really Lambert. Is. I actually watched the Adam Lambert videos from American Idol, where he started, and how he didn't win is beyond me. That's like, right. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, he's
Mad
amazing.
World was unbelievable. The change was going to come was unbelievable. Like everything he did was unbelievable.
He did.
And
did a great job at the gig.
So talented.
Yeah, and Brian May
that was a good show. That was a good show, a really good show.
Brian May was in great form. Like he just owned that concert too. He's
a great guitarist. He really is.
He was.
The whole thing was really good.
It was,
except for the people talking in front of us and behind us, which was really torturing me to no end. I cannot fucking stand that. If you go on a show, listen to the music. You're not there to fucking have a chatting session. Which unfortunately, some people just say, I was at Queen, It doesn't matter if you listen to one fucking note of it. That you're there just talking and having a drink and ruining everyone else's good time. But
the
old me might have just went up and punched the guy. So, I did pretty good.
You did. You walked away.
I kind of walked away when I was burning up.
You found a different spot to watch the concert from. I remember that. All right.
Just for a few minutes till I cooled off, because I really was. That's why I walked away. I was just so mad at these people talking over the music. It was just,
Yeah, indeed.
Anyway.
All right. Thanks so much, Alan. Really appreciate it.
I didn't get that Appalachian Trail. I should have got that.
Yeah, I thought you might get that one. Georgia State +9 is your first-round lock of the week. Maybe I'll...
it's not a lock. He's not a tout.
Sorry. It's his best bet of the first round. The one he likes
I'll probably have
the
most on that one.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Thanks, Alan, so much. Appreciate your time, sir.
All right, be good. Take care, boys.
There he is, Mr. Boston. T, how much do you think is going to get wagered on that Georgia State +9? Give me your guess.
I have the advantage that the fact that I'm, of course, doing this interview live, I was betting while we were doing this interview. So the line does.
There's already a couple thousand on it?
The line moves. I've already gotten in on there earlier, and I also have the no on Kentucky. And as I've mentioned a couple times already on this show, I don't actually know anything about basketball, so I'm just straight up degenning it by betting the Boston picks.
It's not that. It's an informed degen.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to get some action down.
By the way, the maximum bet on that will Kentucky win the NCAA tournament prop? What would you set the line at? What do you think the maximum is right now?
The maximum should be 2,000?
30 grand.
Wow.
You can wager 30 grand on either the yes at +136 or the no at -160 on will Kentucky win the NCAA.
So what they'll do is if you bet that 30, they'll just move the line a little bit and let you bet 30 more.
They will, yeah. So if you bet the no, then you have to lay 162 next time or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Needless to say, my bet did not move the line.
Smooth Jimmy's lock of the week.
There it is. Smooth Jimmy's. It's a big lock. That's a really big lock. All right. So that was a big segment. We got tons more to get to. Usually we would rattle on about some more stuff here, but I think we should probably just cut it here and get the rest of the stuff into segment 3. We're going to go to the Isle of Man, talk to Mr. Steve Day. But before that, we're going to get another Pokercast Daily Fantasy Sports Strategy Minute. And this week we are joined by Jonathan Bales, who is an author. He's got several books out on playing daily fantasy sports and fantasy sports in general. And he's going to talk to us about the relevance of the Vegas betting lines when participating in DFS. So here he is, Mr. Jonathan Bales. You're listening to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. More right after this.
Hey guys, this is Jonathan Bales. I am a DraftKings pro and the author of the Fantasy Sports for Smart People book series available on Amazon. And I just wanted to briefly talk about one of the more underutilized strategies, I think, among novice daily fantasy players at least, that's applicable to every sport, which is leveraging the Vegas lines and information that Vegas gives us into an advantage in DFS. So the Vegas lines have proven statistically to be a really good past proxy for fantasy production. So the teams that are projected to do the best generally do, and that's directly correlated to team fantasy production, which can then be broken down into individual fantasy production. Vegas has a very clear incentive to get things right with so much money on the line, and so we can trust them. And it's a very, very efficient resource when doing daily fantasy research. Some of the things that I like to look at include the game totals. So you can see pretty quantifiable way of determining a team and player upside in a given game. Also, of course, look at the money line, the favorite and dog in a particular game, which is used in conjunction with the totals to help you predict overall fantasy production. And then player props. So especially in NFL, the props come out Sunday. They basically give them for every player, Vegas's best bet in terms of yards, receptions, touchdowns, whatever it is. And you can and should use those in your player projections to find value in daily fantasy. So definitely check out the Vegas lines, and you can find me on Twitter at BalesFootball. Good luck this season.
Hey guys, I have a programming announcement about CrushLivePoker.com. We have 2 new podcasts coming to the site. Firstly, coming out on Mondays every other week, 2+2 Advantage player legend Dolly Man will be hosting his own show. Then every week on Wednesdays, WSOP live stream commentator David Tuckman will be doing an interview-style podcast called Under the Gun, and be sure to check out his first guest, Danielle Moon. That starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can check that out for free on the CrushLivePoker.com page on Twitch, and also as a podcast for free at CrushLivePoker.com.
Hey, it's Mike from the 2+2 store and ProfessionalPoker.com. 2+2 is pleased to announce the release of their most anticipated book in ages, Applications of No Limit Hold'em, a guide to understanding theoretical sound poker by Matthew Jonda. This book will give you the ability to create the bet sizings and ranges which will beat the better players. The theory in this book is not designed to be complex or abstract, but rather it's intended to be applied immediately, producing better overall results. Many confusing concepts, such as overbetting, balancing multiple bet sizing ranges, donk betting, and check raising as a preflop raiser, are crucial to a player's strategy, despite few players implementing them or talking about them. And after reading this book, you should be able to not only conceptually understand these ideas, but also know how to begin incorporating them into your game, and thereby successfully compete against tough opponents. And at the 2+2 store, we accept all credit cards, plus PayPal and NetTeller.
Middle position makes it 2,500 to go at 6-12. Button calls, and I peel with 8-7 off in the big blind. Flop comes Queen 7-6 with a diamond flush draw. I got none. I check, middle position C bets 4K, button folds, and I call. The turn is a 5 of diamond. I lead this time for 13,000, and he calls quickly. The river is a jack off suit, and I bet again, 32K this time, and he snap mucks.
Team Pro Online's Marc-Andre French Dog Ladouceur is a Supernova Elite VIP. This is the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club.
Pokercast presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. So Terrence, Matthew Hilger is on vacation this week. He's actually on vacation for 3 weeks, and that sounds like a pretty good gig, being getting a 3-week vacation. Boom, right in the middle of...
Yet he still came on our show last week, so obviously he must like us so much that this is what he prefers to do with his vacation time.
I'm not sure that's true, but either way, our old friend Steve Day is going to join us this week and talk some PokerStars stuff. Steve, welcome back to the show, sir.
Thanks, guys. It's great to be back.
Fantastic to get you not sleepy-eyed in the morning, but late at night when you've, I'm sure, been out carousing in the Isle of Man, dancing away the night in the nightclubs.
Getting into all those wild Isle of Manx parties, right?
Yeah.
It's
crazy. I was there until they shut the doors at 6 p.m.
Close the place down.
We're rolled up, indeed. Steve, obviously the big news this week, not just at PokerStars, but in poker, I think one of the big stories of the week is the massive success of the 9th anniversary Sunday Million. The $9 million guaranteed prize pool cleared $10 million by the end of it to over 50,000 players. We did our sort of trip report, Terrence and I, but just to get the star side of it and how much of success we had. We had Matthew Hilger last week, and he said he didn't think it would get much more than the $9 million, and his prediction seemed a little conservative.
You'd think it seems conservative, but we put no small amount of effort into analyzing these things, and his estimate was along the lines of what everybody else was thinking as well. This is I would say the largest example of a case where participation exceeded our expectations. There's a lot of factors when you look to compare the tournament series between or large tournaments, what happened the year before, what happened now. You can look at participation in similar events, recent times compared to same time last year, for example. But one big difference between last year and this year that we think, in retrospect, might have made a really big difference is I think we announced the tournament and started promoting it about 3 weeks in advance instead of 9 days. And I think that may have made a bit of a difference. The more people that know about it, and the longer people have to talk about it and get excited, the more it may help. And I know there's a bit of a hubbub over that International Women's Day, but that is absolutely the reason we delayed the tournament. It's a bit embarrassing to not have realized it when we first announced it, but there are certain areas of the world that are very, very big markets for us where that day is a very big deal. It's been described to me as like Valentine's Day and Mother's Day all rolled up into one and kind of multiplied by 1.5.
Okay.
So it was very important to us not to conflict with that.
International Women's Day math, right there for you. So, Steve, when you see something like this, when stars see something like this, a giant success, you get 50,000 people in a tournament for $200. How much of is it? You want to look at that and go, wow, this many people are ready to do this. Obviously, you can't do this every weekend, but is there sort of this inclination to think, well, people want this. Maybe we should, see if we can get more of these huge guaranteed tournaments to run off.
To be fair, we run a Sunday Million every week, and that is a pretty big tournament. There's definitely there's a frequency with which you can run these things and still have them be special. So I think it is important to make them only very occasional and not overdo it. There's a lot of different things we can do in our site to be special in different ways, and this is just one of them. I think the variety, keep changing it up, is a good way to make them remain not ordinary. Right?
Yeah, Steve. Clearly, since the 9th anniversary Sunday Million got a $10 million prize pool, it almost feels kind of lame if the 10th anniversary next year only has a $10 million prize pool.
We already did
Are you
that.
willing? Yeah, exactly. You've been there, done that. I am sure you don't want to go out there on the record and say something will be bigger than that, but I'd have to think you guys are already, just maybe not seriously writing it up on the whiteboard or whatever, but talking about what the potential for next year might be.
Well, the 8 million the 8th anniversary got over 9 million, right?
Yeah.
And then 9 million got over 10 million. The thing about those guarantees is, we're not the tightest of penny pinchers, I don't think, but if you set your expectations at a certain level and figure there's variance one way or another, from the site's perspective, the benefit of going over the guarantee is quite marginal compared to the cost of going under the guarantee. So being able to set a guarantee that is one that you think you'll be able to exceed most or all the time is good business. So I would say it mostly gives us confidence that there'll be a good chance that if business conditions stay the same, or we're able to grow poker like we hope and expect to, that we'll be able to comfortably continue the trend of matching the year of the anniversary with the number of the guarantee, right? So, 10th anniversary, 10 million. It's not an announcement now, but of course that would be our intention to do that if at all possible next year. And knowing they got 10 million this year, and we hope to grow the site between now and then, that just makes us feel extra comfortable. In terms of what we aim for as much darn money in that prize pool as we can get. There's really nothing we left behind this year. The guys spent a lot of time on the satellite schedule. There was a post on the forums that I can share, was made by somebody who's very engaged and aware of what goes on our site. One of the players that said this is the best set of satellite structures, best set of satellites and most balanced he'd ever seen for a special promo event. And I will reveal that the tournament team guys did print that out and post it on the wall in the tournaments team area, because they're pretty proud of it. They did a lot of work on that. There's some new stuff they use for the satellites to help serve our customer base as well as possible.
What generic stock pick do they use for that motivational background for that one? Is what I want to know. Is it like a horse running in the field?
No stock picks. Just the reward posts of the printouts from 2+2. That's it.
High praise indeed. Sticking with tournaments, Steve, the Scoop schedule was announced. This is still a bit away. I mean, we're turning the flowers to they're blooming out there. The seasons are turning. Sunday, May 10th would be the first event, ending with the main event, the 10K main event on the three. Obviously, it's Scoop, so we have three different buy-in levels for each tournament. The 24th of May is a 10K buy-in, the maximum no limit main event. Looking forward to this structure. I guess people. I don't think there's guarantees out yet, Steve, but also people getting excited now for Scoop.
No, the final guarantee call is tomorrow, actually. So there's proposals, and hopefully we'll finalize those within 24 hours and have them out. We'll have them out when the tournaments are deployed on the site. Yeah, it's exciting. Scoop is the largest collective prize pool tournament series we run throughout the year. It's the one where it's the one that's most attractive to the grinders. It's the one that gets most Americans to come out of their cubby holes and go to their part-time homes in Mexico and Canada to go grind. It's the can't miss for the higher stakes tournament crowd. That's for sure. It's not a championship series. It's not intended. Well, it is. Sorry, it is a championship series. It's not a world championship series. So the watch, from our perspective, is a very close second in prestige compared to the WQ bracelet. But in terms of the ability to get action on your money, there's a lot of action to be had because of those Scoop high tournaments. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch and see what happens there. Of course, for most of the people listening, the lows and the mediums are going to be the targets, and there's great action there as well. Massive prize pools. It's a lot of fun for everybody.
T, did you hear that? Your watches ain't worth crap.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the watches. I feel like the watches. Well, I'm going to have. If you're going to go there, I'm going to point out that I have both. By the way, but
you're one of the few people who's qualified to compare the quality and value of each, right?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, obviously, I know the big hunk gold bracelet is like, it's heavy. It's obviously worth more in terms of dollars. And if there was ever like an apocalypse or something, I'd be able to like
trade
melt
that
it down.
for food.
Yeah, right. The watch isn't going to do much. But I mean, I've always thought that watches are sort of better poker gifts anyway, because there's a chance that people might wear a watch. It's so hard for people to, I mean, I don't want to say nobody wears their bracelet around, but come on, like let's.
Not a lot.
So you like the watch more than the bracelet?
I love the watch because you can actually wear the watch. The year I got, I don't know if it's changed since then because I haven't done anything in many years. But it's nice. It wasn't too gaudy. I've always enjoyed that watch. I gave the second one to my dad. I was hoping to win a third one to give it to my mom, but that never happened.
Humble brag.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't mean to brag, but I'm the greatest.
I think anybody who's got 2 Scoop watches and a Scoop bracelet absolutely deserves to let everyone know about it. Well done. So you like the watch over the bracelet. That's interesting. Do you feel that the bracelet has more prestige, though?
Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, I think the W Coupe itself clearly has more prestige because the Scoop. There's so many more because you're running not 3 tournaments a day, but 3 tournaments per event. I'm not sure what the correct nomenclature is, but you know what I mean. There's the small, medium, and the high, and then there's multiple events a day. So with the W Coupe, there's 1 event per. So it's sort of the online analog to the WSOP bracelet. So I certainly understand what's going on there. But it's I wanted to talk about what you brought up just before, which was all the Americans kind of heading to Mexico or in Canada, which is kind of funny. I'm a Canadian who's in Mexico at the moment. And you, of course, had the Sunday Million winner from Mexico. The timing of the event, I noticed, May 10th to the 24th, is right after the EPT final and right before the start of the World Series. So it's actually like a really great time to go to wherever it is you normally, go offshore and grind poker. Of course, if you're in Europe or international, you don't have to do that. But it's pretty cool. And I always, being a guy from Vancouver, I always see so many poker players who have come up just to play poker, and it's like the best time of year to actually come to Vancouver or Toronto or somewhere like that to play poker.
It is. It's not accidental that it's slotted right in there. Actually, we had the Scoop initially scheduled for a week earlier this year. Actually, ended up moving it back before it was announced, of course, due to when they needed to run EPT Monte Carlo. This was several months back we made this change. Mm-hmm. So we definitely do put it right there to make it convenient for everybody, and it's the one to grind. Of course, people, it's not like we take people who don't truly relocate, let them go up to Canada or something once a year to play Scoop. These are people that have generally established residences outside of the country and maybe go back and forth and spend not just Scoop up in Canada, but whatever their schedules are, they make sure that Scoop is part of the time they spend outside the country, right? So look, it's exciting. It's going to be a massive time for the site. Everybody's going to be talking about the tournaments, and this year, we're going to have how many people are going to be streaming the tournaments on Twitch to create a buzz? Are we going to have somebody, final tabling, Scoop events, Scoop High events on the stream live with a 5-minute delay?
That's going to be interesting. I wanted to get into some stuff about Twitch with you since we haven't talked to you specifically about it. How much does it scare PokerStars is one thing I want to know. I'm
excited.
All your guys live streaming that something isn't going to go wrong at some point. And I don't mean the delay or anything like that, but if a pro endorser guy is doing a video or something where you can edit, this is live and presumably many hours of content. Somebody might say something dumb at some point.
Twitch excites me. It doesn't scare me. We choose our endorsers carefully, which isn't to say that all of them says, the perfect thing. All of them say the perfect thing every single moment of every day, of every week, of every month, every year. They're human beings, right? So there has to be some acceptance that people make mistakes or have bad days, right? They're human beings. And we accept that of our endorsers. We don't accept, patterns of inappropriate behavior or absolutely egregious and ridiculous things. But we like to think we sign people who don't engage in such behavior in the first place, right? So look, it's live, but people play poker on TV where they don't have control of the edit sometimes, right? And there's risks there as well. We trust our people, and if something happens, something will happen. I don't have an expectation that in the next year we're going to have a massive disaster, what somebody says on a live stream. But I suppose you're right. It's theoretically possible. I could be wrong. But mostly, I'm just absolutely excited about Twitch.
Yeah,
I'm mostly afraid that... Sorry, Adam. I'm mostly afraid, because I've never streamed anything. I'm mostly afraid that I'm going to final table something one day and say, "Oh, I should do this," and then forget to put the delay on or something like that, or forget to hide my hole cards. I'm pretty sure that would be my biggest fear, is that I would just be playing with my cards face up once.
Well, the thing about that though is that you have. I mean, if you're streaming, presumably you have people watching you, right? And if you have people watching you, then these are your fans who contribute and subscribe, and they're kind of on your side, so they tell you.
Oh,
that's what the chat's for.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. Steve, I wanted to get into some stuff about endorsers, but I understand we have you for the next couple of weeks, so why don't we save that for next week, and we'll get into it then.
Yeah, that sounds good. I may even stick around a little longer. I may start doing a little more regular appearances on the show again.
Oh, fantastic. So, love to hear that. Great to have you back, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks so much for your time, sir.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. And say hi to Alan Boston for me.
We will indeed. Talk to you later.
All right. Okay, bye-bye.
Well, that's great news, T. We're going to get Steve back a little bit more regularly. Love to hear his take on a lot of the stuff.
How is he going to be able to do that with all the partying he's doing in the Isle of Man? I just don't understand.
He's just he's a crazy man, or really is what he is. Good to know. So let's do the Invitational, right? So each week we have the Pokerstars Invitational for Pokercast listeners. This is a $500 added tournament on Sundays, added to your grind. It's a $1 buy-in, $1 $10 buy-in, $1.10 buy-in.
$1.10.
Yes, maybe? One of those. The private tab of the tournament's lobby is where you're going to find this under the Pokercast Invitational. We had a guy in the stream this week. I was in the stream with you on Sunday.
All three of us were there.
Yeah. We were all, when Terrence and I, of course, were playing Sunday Million, and you were grinding.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was, but he wanted to have 8-game as the format this week. So let's go with 8-game. The password, of course, we've got Scoop coming up. Make the password 2015 Scoop, all one word, all lowercase, or not word in the case of the numbers, but numbers, one word. Scoop, lowercase, is the password for this week's Invitational. Check it out. Add it to your grind. A great tournament each week. You're going to live stream this one, Roscoe?
Yeah.
You're an 8-game guy. You enjoy the 8-game.
I don't know if I'm an 8-game guy. I don't understand those 8 or better games very well, but this is good practice.
It is. It's good fun.
You know what I've always wanted to, and I forgot to ask Steve, and I had it on my list. I was playing a little bit of 8-game while I was playing the Sunday Million,
Oh.
Yeah.
but I realized it's really hard to play, or for
Both.
me, my brain's not that good anymore, the stud games while you're playing, because when you're playing stud, if you're playing any of the stud games, you have to keep track of the dead cards.
Card removal,
and then so
yeah.
I would be in a stud hand, and then I would, my attention would come over to the Sunday Million. I'd get involved in a pot over there. I'd have to watch what's going on there, and then I miss all the folded cards. And I'm going, there's a problem. So I want to ask Steve one of these days, or somebody at PokerStars, if there's ever any thought to a mixed game where there's only draw and flop games, because you don't have to pay attention to what's going on in those.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wonder if there's people out there, and this, I just thought of this when you were talking about it. Is there some sort of software program that shows dead cards? Like
there probably is, but I don't even know if you're allowed to use it. So
I'm
we would
sure
have to
you
ask.
Wouldn't be. Yeah, I don't think you would be.
Again, because that sort of counts as assistance. Now, it's the account as assistance that if somebody were using it against me, I wouldn't really be that upset about it, because it is public information. Much like the regular HUDs. Somebody's VPIP is also something you can track. But,
yeah.
I found it extremely confusing a few weeks ago when I was trying to play 5-card PLO and deuce to 7 single draw at the same time.
Yeah, those are
2 opposite games with 5 cards.
Stud and Raz, all of that kind of stuff.
Well, there's always the stories about guys at the World Series playing the wrong game at the right time. And actually, FBT posted a hand on Facebook this week where they were playing low ball, and a guy with open queens on 4th Street was going crazy in a 200.
Did he bring it in for the double bet? Because that would be a tell that he might not game his
This is yeah, so, and they're playing 200, 400 too. Anyway, it was it was a funny hand. But for sure. I think that's something we can ask Steve next time. He's going to be here for a few weeks. So, but let's get right back into the discussion. This week we're going to go almost all mailbag here. We got all kinds of listener submission. We've been begging for it. You guys have reached out to us in various media forums. I thank you. We thank you so much to give us some of this stuff to talk about. So let's jump right in. Actually, before we get to mailbag, I want to get to the shoutouts. This is the Where in the World Are You Listening To, or we're listening from a thread in the Pokercast forum. It's a sticky there now, so you don't have to find it. It's always at the top. The first shoutout is going to be to listener Bieg. He says, hey, Pokercast, 45-year-old male here, which we need a ding kind of thing, sound effect. No.
That's the demographic we were missing all along is the 45-year-old males, right?
I've listened to the show for years and years. It's the first podcast I listen to religiously every week. It throws me off the weeks when there's no show, so quit doing that. Anyways, as I said, I was a mid-stakes grinder in South Florida. I edited this. It was a real long one, so I'm just picking out parts of it. I currently find myself living in MD Anderson in Houston, Texas. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer of the tonsil and the tongue in November of last year. My life turned upside down at that point, and I've not had the chance to play since. Even my poker bankroll has gone to fighting this disease. My prognosis is good. However, if the treatment does not kill me, that's the hard part. Between the chemo and the radiation, I've lost 30 pounds. And where I once was in great physical shape, I'm now a wreck. No time for a sob story, but one word of warning. The cancer I caught is sexually transmitted. It's the same cancer that Michael Douglas caught and is caused by the HPV virus. I contracted it through oral sex. The rate of occurrence of this type of oral cancer is expected to increase dramatically in the next few years. Anyways, I thought I would share that word of caution with everybody out there. Most people are shocked to hear what caused my affliction. Anyways, I'm counting down till my treatment is over, 43 days as of today. It's been a rough haul and is expected to get worse. But still, I'll put my head down and wake up each day to fight. I can't wait to get back to the felt. Listening to the Pokercast at least gives me a little taste of what I'm missing. Keep up the good work.
Wow.
Yeah, big shout out.
So first of all, obviously, good luck in your fight.
Yeah.
That's major. I consider myself educated. I did not know that was a way you could contract cancer, and so obviously, the education that he's hoping to provide is something that is sorely needed, because I honestly I didn't even hear about the Michael Douglas thing. I don't know about that, but that is crazy. So all the best of luck to Bieg. We hope to see you back on the felts as well. Glad our little show can provide you a little entertainment while you're in the hospital, but more kind of thanks for the education. I guess more people need to know about this.
Yeah, I think the key there is it's caused by the HPV virus,
right?
So obviously, everybody should be checked for that to make sure you don't have that before you
potentially passing it on to somebody else, and
before
through sexual activity. Yeah,
get down to the oral sexes. Don't want to get cancer. It's terrible.
We all love oral sex. We all don't love cancer.
No. Next shout out to Ken Janis, southeast corner of Houston, Texas, not far from the Johnson Space Center. He usually listens while driving or playing live or online poker. Not a big
he's playing online poker in Texas?
Oh, you can. You can play the America's Card Rooms, the Bovadas.
I know. I'm just saying. He's out there on the green market, but we're not using his real name, so
hard
it's
to
okay.
blame him. I'd be out there too.
Oh yeah, of course.
Not a big forum poster, and I don't know where to put this, but has anyone read Thomas Friedman's article in the New York Times about our buddy Sheldon and the Israel Likud party? The name of the article is World Diplomacy Now Adelson's Casino? You need to read this. While I'm here, a few things from the past Pokercast I'd like to address. One of my top 5 favorite words and or phrases are fuck, fuck it, fuck you, fuck off, and pizza. Which, yeah.
Fucking fuck.
We don't over that. We're not going to, obviously, we're not going to be heading out any swear words. But as far as guest suggestions, I was watching Jason Somerville on Twitch the other day, and he mentioned Tommy Angelo. Maybe you could get Jason, maybe you could get Tommy, maybe both. We've tried with Jason. He's in the middle of 70 days straight. This is incredible. Like, he is going to be streaming on Twitch poker for 70 days in a row.
Yeah. Normally, I'd say if you tried to contact a guest like multiple times and he blew you off, I would say like he's not interested or he's big time in us or whatever it is. But I think the man probably just wants a couple hours a day where he doesn't have to talk about poker.
Well, and now that we're recording during the day because you're a day guy, he's recording during the day too. So it's the schedules aren't meeting up. We will get Jason eventually, and we've just talked to Jamie Staples about Twitch, so we don't want to beat it to death too much. We are talking about it a lot, but we will will have Jason on in the future, absolutely. And Tommy Angelo, I love to have on the show. He's a fantastic guest. I will definitely try and reach out to Tommy before the World Series.
Have you had him on the show before?
Yeah, Tommy's been on a couple of times.
For sure.
The next shout-out is OG Slick Rick, Newport News, Virginia. I listen to the car, except when my wife's in the car with me. She's not the biggest fan. Maybe it's time to reevaluate our relationship. I think I just found a leak. Yeah, what the heck? The last time.
I would say he doesn't have to reevaluate so much if he's listening to this episode, and we just read his post on the air the show. So presumably, if she's listening, then all we've done is just cause an argument that's occurring like right now in that car, which is kind of awesome.
If Slick Rick, if you can get your wife to post in the forum thread or this show thread this week to why she's not impressed with the Pokercast, that would be fantastic, and we'll read it on the air and get.
If she hasn't dumped his ass
if she has
letter.
Yeah, exactly. The last one is Barnkeeper, Pescadero, California. Enjoy the podcast, but still haven't figured out the coop part of T-Coop. See, you want to take that one?
It stands for the Terrence Chan of online poker. No, of course, it's the Turbo Championship of online poker. All the Coop ones are to the Championship of online poker. So we just finished talking to Mr. Day about the Spring Championship of online poker, and later in the year there's a World Championship of online poker. And it seems that that's sort of the theme that they're running with for their three big tournaments. So no mystery there. But yeah, we do throw around a lot of terms sometimes without very adequately explaining them.
We do.
So that's a fair question.
Why is of part of an acronym? Sometimes it's part of an acronym, sometimes it's not.
Oh, so you're talking like why couldn't it have been? Well, because I think the first one, the first one was the W Coop, so that easily could have been the W Cop,
right?
But it's cool that the Scoop became the Scoop.
That's right.
Because you would want that extra O in there.
Scop doesn't work.
Yeah,
but I think the idea
sounds
was
better.
I think the idea was probably pulled off the WSOP, which of course is the World Series of Poker. You can't drop the O in that one because then you just have WISP. So I think they kept the WSOP in there, and so Pokerstars ended up doing the World Championship of online poker. I assume it works something like that.
Indeed. All right. So that's the shout-outs for that. We're going to move on to listener input now.
And now.
That right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay?
Mailbag.
And the first, Terrence, is an email we got from Ann Albrecht. And the topic is women in poker. We've been talking about it a fair amount in the last few weeks. And first off, she says, thanks a lot for a great podcast. I've been an avid listener from the very start. Even though I miss Mike from time to time, the two of you do a great job. Thanks so much, Anna. And she goes on and she's talking about how, that we've talked that no woman has won an Open WPT title, etc. And then she points out that women in the last 2.5 months, just in 2015, have had an amazing year. A lot of women have gone deep in tournaments, and she points them all out. She writes actually she has a website called PokerWomenNews.com to highlight women in poker and talk about a lot of these subjects. And she's right. There's been some amazing results by females in the last just 2.5 months in 2015 from Joanne Liu, Nicole Cervenka. There's been some amazing deep runs for sure. So they might not have the titles or the wins, but clearly are doing quite well otherwise. But one of the things that she gets down to as well is the expert live commentary of tournaments. She doesn't think she thinks that it turns women off when people or when the commentators are somewhat harsh on players. Oh, that's terrible.
Wait, so women don't like strat?
They're afraid of being no, not that. I think she feels that they're afraid of being called out if they do get to a final table, and she's going to get there because I think she pointed out Tony Dunst, Jason Kuhn, and Mukul Pahuja were talking. They were doing commentary and saying, "Oh, that's a terrible play," and picking apart some of the people's play that made the final table. Now, I'm not quite sure what to think of that. My first inclination is that I enjoy it. I don't as someone who's done a little bit of this, it's really, really hard to do poker commentary without being opinionated. It's hard to do good poker commentary without being opinionated.
Right.
I think Norman and Lon do a great job. They aren't opinionated very much. Norm will make fun of people a little bit in a joking way if he feels that the play was creative or whatever. But I think what Ann is saying as well is that this when you get three sort of young guns together doing the commentary, it feels like a bit of a boys' club where they take shots at everybody, and I'm much better than you guys, and haha, that's a terrible play. I'm not sure I like it if it comes off like that, but I do enjoy critical commentary.
Right. Well, I'll go a little farther than you and to say that if you're not being critical of people's play as a commentator, you're probably not doing your job, because that's what you're there for. You're not there to tell everybody that they're making great plays or whatever, because that if you wanted to just be in a neutral tone, you just have a play-by-play guy all the time. Now, I do think that you bring up the boys club thing, because when you have two or three young gun pros all talking about it, there tends to be this more insular effect where opinions bounce off each other, and it gets even more stronger than it is. Look at this fishy player, that kind of stuff. I think that's why it's a lot of times just better to have the kind of two-man scenario or two-man booth where you have the professional broadcaster and the analyst, or maybe three when you have a broadcaster and two analysts. But when you bring in only poker professionals, it tends to get off the rails a little bit, because now everything is a terrible play, and it takes a focus a little bit from the event. I think there's a time and a place for this too, by the way. I think, for example, like if you were talking about say commentary on a PokerStars Sunday Million final table, for example. That's a much more hardcore demographic. They're going to want the hardcore strategy and the breakdown, the analysis, and all this kind of stuff. And when you're talking about something that's a little bit more mass-produced, maybe you don't necessarily want to get in all the time about how this guy's polarized his range so badly, and it's really terrible. It makes it an easy call for this guy or whatever, and his range is really unbalanced and all this kind of stuff. Whether this affects women disproportionately more, maybe. I feel like that's what Anne is kind of saying. I mean, she writes in the email that it affects definitely amateur men and women, but it affects women more, and I think that's probably true. In my experience, women are a little bit more it's tougher for women to be criticized publicly, because social standing is a thing that's very, very important to women, and men are liable just to say, well, fuck you, I don't care what your opinion of my poker play is, go to hell. But it's a little bit tougher. But yeah, definitely it's rough on the amateur players, and you could definitely see how an amateur watching commentary about this, and they would think, well, maybe I don't want to put myself into this position. On the other hand, I tend to think that a lot of players think that, probably 90% of players probably think they're better than they really are. And so when a commentator says, this guy, oh, I can't believe he's playing this hand, or I can't believe he's not bluffing this river, or something like that, the guy at home, one of the big appeals of poker has always been, like, I could be better than this guy. Why am I not at this final table?
Yeah.
Yeah, that to me has always been the fun of it. I mean, most people, like, the way that everybody thinks that they're better at driving and sex, they also think that they're better at poker, right?
Indeed.
But I'd love to have Anne to come on and talk about this stuff. It's obviously something that's really passionate. She's made this website. She sent us this really thoughtful long email. So Anne, if you're out there listening, I think it'd be cool to talk to you sometime.
Yeah, and next time we do talk about the topic, I'll shoot her an email and see if she's interested in coming on the show. It's pokerwomennews.com. Thanks so much, Anne, for the email. Appreciate that. Let's do some more listener input. This one is, hey, poker dudes, I've been a constant listener since that lovely man, Howard Lederer, fucked up everybody's life savings. If you see him, tell him I have a present for him at my house.
Jesus.
Okay. Wow. It was good seeing you all together in Ross's Pokercast stream on Twitch. I can see Ross's stream is slowly getting more traction. Hopefully we'll see more viewers in coming weeks. I've got some really basic questions for you. One, do you guys play many tourneys these days, or do you just play the big ones every now and then? T, go.
Well, okay, I usually mention when I play a tournament. I last played the Aussie Millions and I played the Sunday Million. I basically, with respect to live tournaments is I'll play them when they're convenient and or when they're a fun place to go. So when I went to play Aussie Millions, I was in Bali. Melbourne's a relatively short flight from there, so I was like, I love the city of Melbourne. I'll go there. For me, I'm not a full-time professional poker player. I don't travel to play tournaments. I like being around the World Series. I'll be in the World Series, play a bit less of a schedule than I normally have. I would say probably I play 20-ish tournaments a year. Usually when I'm in the area, or whether it's a fun place that I've never been to that I'd really like to go to. So for me, I'm probably in that casual demographic now where the destination and the whole experience is more important to me than whether I have like a really good ROI in that tournament or something like that. So that's sort of the extent of my poker. I'd say about 20 to 25 tournaments a year.
I play way fewer than that. The last tournament I played in was the Millionaire Maker at the World Series last year, I believe. The last live tournament that I play. I'll play almost zero online tournaments.
You don't even play in Vancouver when the tournaments are in town. Like you didn't play like the West Coast Poker Championship and that kind of stuff. And
tournaments I just don't enjoy. I don't. I'll play them, and I think I'm pretty good at them when I do play. But I just
do you play live cash? Like do you play anything live at all?
No, not a lot. I have in the past. I haven't in the last year. I've been really busy. My kid with his hockey is 6 days a week, and my wife has health issues and stuff, so I'm around the house a lot dealing with that. So getting away.
You're made for online poker.
I'm totally made for
especially
online
cash. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of my focus. Any story is second question. Any stories about how your Sunday Million went on Sunday? We talked about that. Yeah. Number 3. Also, I'm keen to know what your biggest tourney score is, online or live. Mine is live, and it was a $90,000 second place event at the BC Poker Championships. That's my biggest. T, what's your biggest?
I think first of all, actually, you're wrong. What do you think it is?
The one you were sequestered at the World Series.
Oh, yes, you're all right. Okay, so it was my second place.
Pot limit hold'em, wasn't it?
No, 6 max no limit.
Oh, 6 max no limit hold'em.
Yes, I finished second. Hoyt Corkins took it down, won the bracelet. Yeah, but I was locked in the room.
I remember the sequestering. Yeah,
yeah, it was the worst. It was the worst final table ever. The 2007, I want to say. That's about $250,000. I think it was about $500,000 for first. I'm curious because we always assume that poker players all know about the Hendon mob, and of course, if you wanted to really know the answer to the question, you would of course you type the person's name.
But you can't for me because there's several Adam Schwartzes that are all my results are spread out over. There's the classic. There's a classic one with a guy who's actually sent his. You know how in the Hendon mob your listing is there, and if you want to send a picture in, you can send a picture in. And this guy sent it. He's on a boat, literally. This guy, and he's got like aviator reflecting sunglasses, and it's hilarious.
So there's a Rudolph Schwartz that's
it's Adam.
It's an Adam Schwartz.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so for you, it's a little trickier because your legal name is not the name that you go by.
Yeah.
For me, it's fairly easy to go to Hendon Mob to check out that result. So, but yeah, we just always assume that everybody knows. But in terms of stalking people for live caches, obviously you have to go to the Hendon Mob and just type in their name. And if you want to know their online screen names too, you can always do that. Obviously, online, my highest score would have been, I imagine it would have been the Scoop High. I don't know what I won for that, but I think it was somewhere in the area of like $130,000. So that's my biggest first place, even though finishing second at a World Series 2,500 was much better than finishing in a online limit hold'em for $5K. But,
I'm surprised you think I got that wrong when you said you.
I thought you just assumed it would be the Scoop or the W Coop because most people think it's that because it's the one that I'm more well known for. But I forgot you were actually there.
That's
when
right.
I finished second at the World Series.
I got my T-Chan trivia down. I'm good.
There you go.
From the forums, Whatnot writes, long-time listener, first-time caller, have listened to every single Pokercast episode, and your Vegas previews have me reaching for the fast-forward button for the first time. Please keep your overall audience in mind and ask yourselves if over 50% of an episode being about Vegas food really makes sense. I get the World Series of Poker preview concept, but I feel it's overtaken the show in recent weeks and it's getting really old. Also, T-Chan comparing someone criticizing Somerville, a sponsored professional with the biggest following by a large measure on poker's hottest platform, to tapping the aquarium is simply unbelievable. I know you guys are UP buddies, and I sincerely respect you sticking up for him, but come on. The guy's made himself a poker brand name by streaming all his action. How on earth could you consider criticizing that action offside or remotely in any way related to criticizing a recreational player? Just having fun with the game. I love the other 354 episodes, though. Before you get to that Somerville thing, just on the Vegas thing, I understand what you're saying. I think it was just one of those things where we wanted to have some fun with Chainsaw and Jimmy for sure, to have him back on the show. I understand that one might have been not for everybody.
Well, to me, it's always hard to make everybody happy. Right? We've had other people in the thread come on and say they absolutely love the WSOP preview. I think the satellite thing with Chris Danik was really well received. We've had a lot of requests for people talking about cash games and other aspects of the World Series. So to us, we've talked about housing as well. I think people enjoyed that. To us, it seemed like a natural extension to talk about food and the restaurants, because I think, Jimmy himself mentioned this. People ask all the time, where should I go eat in Vegas? Now, I understand some people will never, ever come to the World Series, but it's hard to keep everybody happy all the time. And, we try to select topics that are relevant to anybody, but certainly I understand.
The food advice is definitely the one that's most relevant year-round, too, though.
That's true, yeah.
That's a good point, yeah.
You end up going to Vegas at any point.
Yeah.
Those
But he makes a good point, too, in that 50% of the audience, it's a good thing. Do you think 50% of the audience cares? And we do have, just look at that thread that we've started on where in the world are you listening from. Not a ton of people from Las Vegas, or, there's a lot of people from around the world is what I'm trying to say. So I understand what he's saying, and we'll try and keep that in mind for sure. Now, the Jason Somerville criticism you're...
Yeah, I think it's fair, like that maybe I didn't express myself as well as I wanted to. And just to be clear on this, like Jason, I've been over to his house a couple of times. We're not best of friends. I think, we're good, but I think we're more like strong acquaintances, and we enjoy each other's company and hang out. But the way I see the Twitch stream and what he's doing is that he's doing something that people enjoy. He's being very well compensated for it, and Stars, I'm sure, is taking care of it and stuff like that. But I've always thought of his stream, it's more like an edutainment with an emphasis on the entertainment. I don't think he's putting himself out there as a poker coach. I think if he's one of these guys who, if he happens to be informing, I think that's a benefit for him. He said specifically many times that he doesn't like the poker coaching thing. So it's obviously not tapping the aquarium. He's not a fish, and he's not. And like you said, like Whatnot said, he's putting himself out there to be criticized. But I do take issue with the way that it's being done. If you're just going out there and saying, "Oh my God, this guy is so fucking awful that I can't believe how he wins money at poker. I can't believe he had a deal," and this is stuff that's really out there that's being said, and they're not, the people who are criticizing aren't doing it themselves, right? Like when you're willing to put up a stream with all of your whole cards, and you're a professional poker player, and then you can maybe talk about this, but you can throw stones when you're in the glass house kind of thing. But I think it's a little cheap and classless to take really aggressive stance towards, he's so bad at poker, I can't believe that this is happening, and that this guy calls himself a pro and he represents himself as a pro, because he's promoting and he's creating his own brand, but he's doing it for the masses. It's a lot like, it would be like criticizing Norman Chad for the level of expert commentary that he provides. Jay Carver is an elite poker player, but he's not putting himself out there as I'm the god and I know all of the strategy, and you guys should just bow down and learn from me. And
although I think there's a bit of a difference with Norman, because I think clearly he's not offering strategy advice, and Jason is a lot of the time when he's on his stream. But you're right. People who aren't doing it shouldn't be throwing stones, because you record anybody doing that much time, and I don't care if it's Phil Ivey, you're going to go, what the hell was that? What was he thinking there? You know what I mean? So,
right.
I think everybody is open to criticism in that way.
Yeah. If you stream for 8 hours on one table, then
you would see some horrible plays if I stream.
Right. So that's like at least like 500 hands, right? Like at a bare minimum, at a slow table, it's like 500 hands. Mm-hmm. Find me a player who plays like 500 hands correctly, consistently. Yeah. Like that's really hard, I think.
No question. Next is a piece of email. I played online poker for about 5 years. Problem I have now is live tournament environment settings. I'm quite introverted by nature, I think, but then again, I'm not too shy. I have trouble adjusting to particularly long tournaments. In between hands, I look at my phone, and I struggle where to look, etc. I even thought about taking an iPad for a long movie. Problem is then I'm not paying attention to the table. Also, when I'm in a hand, I know everybody at the table is focusing. This is very difficult for me. Drinking sometimes can help a lot, but then I turn into a dick. If the table goes quiet, then sometimes I might start talking to other players, etc. I also sometimes fold out of turn, which can annoy the table. Are there any tips or advice you have for me? Attitude to take, personalities at the table. Have you experienced this?
LOL, don't commence.
Yeah, it's your nature is your nature. It's really, really hard to change who you are, right? I mean, I think and yourself, we're both sort of gregarious a little bit in that when we're at the table, I tend to talk a lot to people if they're willing to talk and have fun and joke around, etc. I'm not one of them that's going to go there with his headphones and just bury my head in my hoodie and not talk to anybody. I just can't do that. It's a miserable experience, so I don't want to do that. So, again, if you're not like that, it's going to be difficult for you to force yourself to do that. So is it a good idea to force yourself? I'm not sure. It depends if it's going to help you at all in your game. As far as tips for paying attention, I think involving yourself with the hands instead of, staring at a person for a tell when a card rolls off. I don't know if you have to do that every time. Clearly, sometimes you should, but just involving yourself, like give yourself a hand and how would you play it, etc. Different ways to involve yourself. That's the only tip I can come up with.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And first of all, I want to say that playing like 8 hours or 10 hours of live poker is you're never going to be able to focus that entire time, because mental energy is like any kind of physical energy. You have a reserve, and when you run out, you're just not going to be able to play it. So my general rule is, like, the first couple levels, I kind of passively pay attention. I don't worry too much about exactly what everybody's doing, because when I'm coming into hour 7 or 8, I want to have a little bit in the gas tank to really focus and dial in, because it is an exhaustible supply. Now, a couple specific things that I think you mentioned: don't bring your iPad to the table and watch a movie. That's
terrible idea.
You're not paying attention. Your brother, by the way, Dan Idema, he I don't know if he still does it, but definitely for a while when we were roommates for a little bit, he stopped even listening to headphones while he was playing, because he felt that he was missing information from the rest of the table. I don't know if he still does that, but just to bring a point, what the pros do is they do pay attention to the surroundings, and you can't do that like if you're watching a movie. I mean, I don't even listen to podcasts and stuff like that. I might listen to soft music and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I do disagree with you, Adam, on one thing, is that I think you can train your way out of and I think what David's describing to a lot of extent is just basic ADHD, right? To not, I can't pay attention, I can't focus, I get bored and I get distracted by my phone and all that kind of stuff. This stuff is fixable. There's a lot of ways to do it if you kind of just look up how to train your way out of ADHD. Meditation is actually one that's worked successfully. I don't know, if you take your game really seriously, you probably should get into some meditation habits. I wouldn't get too much into the drugs. I mean, I know a lot of elite pros take a lot of ADHD drugs to get them focused. I certainly don't recommend that unless you're playing at the highest levels and playing for a ton of money. But memory training, if you ever look up something called the dual NBAC, that might be helpful. That's basically a game that helps you work your working memory a little bit better. I think there are things that you can do to train, and we do live in a very ADHD society where you're always refreshing Facebook, you're refreshing Twitter, you're getting text messages from people, and that makes it harder, I think, to focus on poker, which is relatively slow when you're playing it live. So there are definitely things that you can do, but definitely this guy's not alone out there with this problem. I check my phone too much when I'm playing too, but when I catch myself doing it, then all I do is I make sure, okay, I'll take a step back. What am I really here for? I'm here to play poker. So let's put the phone down, let's put the Kindle away, and let's actually take a look at see who's playing good, who's playing bad, and all that kind of stuff.
Good advice. That's from David. Thanks so much, David, for your email. Next one. Hello. Would you please talk about payout structures? Dan Harrington once said he didn't think an unsponsored player could ever sustain a living on the poker circuit with travel and expenses and buy-ins. I recently played a tournament with 958 entrants. I finished 10th for a prize of 6 times the buy-in. The winner got 173 times the buy-in. This isn't sour grapes. I just feel that if you're in the top 1% of such a large field, that this should be better rewarded. If you made the final table and finished 9th, it was 8 buy-ins. I think in this case, the English is second language, I think. I think in a case like this, about 20 times would be more deserved. The difference between first and second was 22 buy-ins. I think if it were more like 10 times, both would have an incentive to play for first. Also, I think if you cash 100 plus MTT, you should get 3 times the buy-ins minimum. Not sure what he means there. I'm not suggesting
He's saying a min cash should be 3. He's saying a min cash should be 3x if it's more than 100 players.
I see. Okay. I'm not suggesting pay more people, though. For the main event, I think it's a great idea. I think this lessens swings and make it more possible for a self-supporting tourney grinder. Thank you. I prefer to remain anonymous. I think his example is pretty extreme. I'm one of these guys who likes, when I do play a tournament, I like a steep structure. I don't like a super flat structure just for the fact that I don't play many. So when I do play it, if I end up banking, I want to win a bunch. I'm not too concerned about, where the payout comes or double, where I double my money or whatever. The reason I play a tournament is to try and win the jackpot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is it that extreme? So, doing the math real quickly, from what he says, first place got paid 18% of the prize pool. Is that really that out of line for a 958-player tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I remember back in the day when it was 20% was standard for first.
Yeah, I mean, those were smaller fields, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I would encourage this guy to sort of do the math on it. Like, doing payout structures is actually really tough, and so tournament directors have a really tough job. Like, if there are 958 entrants, so let's say after the juice it's like 920 buy-ins, and you want to pay 20 times minimum for 9th place, and you want to play 3x the buy-in for a min cash, like there's just not that many buy-ins to go around. I mean, we're talking like if you got 958, presumably you're paying close to 100 people, so that's right away. That's 300 buy-ins right there, and then another 180 at the final table. Like this is incredibly flat payout structure. So if you really think this is feasible, sit down with like an Excel spreadsheet, try to figure out how this math actually works, which is something I've actually done, and you'll find that basically you have to create an insanely flat payout structure where first place gets like 7% or something like that, or you just can't do it, or you're pulling money out of thin air.
Yeah, so that answers that. Let's move on to the next one. Adam and the rest. This email and parts of it has been bubbling in the back of my mind for years. I go way back with the show, way back before T-Chan, before DUCY, before Lack and Esfandiari Sperm Jar, before the letter files, before 2+2. So he is he's an OG. Some feedback. More strategy, please. You're turning into a poker lifestyle and media show, which, if intentional, is fine. But one of the reasons I enjoy the show is to have that balanced with hearing discussions about strategy, about points where the tactical thinking about the game is changing, about how things like GTO and exploitative play, which are tossed around by more people than understand them, in brackets, actually play out in real hands. Don't make it an all-strategy show, of course, but each week I'd love to hear 15 minutes of strat talk. You could even use Russ as a guinea pig. So I want to go. He's got a lot of points here, and this is from Daniel, and it's an excellent email because it's from a guy who's been with us for a long time, and he laid it out with some constructive criticism, and I really like his email. I'm going to go just talk. I'm going to respond to you if you want to respond as well to each point that he talks about. As far as the strategy goes, I mean, for years with Mike, I wanted it to be much more strategy than it was. But I also understand his and the listener's point that, strategy on radio isn't always the best thing. And I've listened to a lot of strategy podcasts. Poker is hard without a visual aid. If you're going to go through a hand, and we've done it here on the show a lot of times, and especially like a PLO hand, you want to break down a PLO hand, and it's really, really hard to go through each hand and keep it interesting for people and not have to go back and go.
I had 9-8-6-4 and the flop came Jack 7-3. You're like, what? So you have
no, it came 5-6-7.
No, yeah, and no, so you have the straight and a redraw. No, I just have the straight. Like, it's really tough.
Yeah, so that's more hand discussion. We're going to do some. We'll always do some. That's going to be part of our thing. We're going to, we'll find hands that are on TV or were interesting, whatever. We're going to go through those from time to time with our guests. But it's not going to be a large part of our show simply because it's really, really hard to do in this format. As far as macro strategy, like, bigger picture type strategy stuff, I think there's places out there, honestly. I mean, we're going to do that stuff too. To focus on it, I think it's probably there's places out there that you can find that already.
What I would like to say is that we do get this kind of comment a lot, and I think it's fair.
Yeah, I think it's fair too.
I would like to say, if you want Strat Talk, submit a Strat question.
That's right. We've been asking. Good point.
We get this a lot. Like, why don't you guys talk about poker strategy anymore? Well, I mean, this is your show, guys. I mean, we're reading listener email and listener forum posts on the show. Send us a question. If we can't answer it, we'll bring somebody in who can. Or we'll try our best to do it. But this criticism to me, like, it's legit. But just don't, give us something to work with.
Indeed.
That's kind of my perspective on it.
The next point is, I get that you're not journalists, but you've been in the interview game a long, long time. 1 point, stop leading the witness. Very rarely do you ask a question without providing an answer. You often ask questions that go something like this. I was wondering about what you thought about X. Is it something where you're happy to see it happen, or does it make you wish it would go away? You'll get more interesting answers and more opportunities for follow-up questions if you stop the question after about X, especially with your more cogent. That's
cogent.
That's not a
cogent
word.
Is the
cogent
word.
a word?
Yes.
I didn't know it was a word.
It's well spelled.
Thoughtful guests. In this, here's one thing that I've found doing the show for a long time is that interviewing people isn't as easy as you would think it is. Oftentimes, when you ask a question of somebody who you're interviewing, you want to make it long enough for the person to actually think about the answer. Because if you just ask them a question in 1 second or 2 seconds, it sort of stuns the person, and you don't often get a very good answer because they're not ready for the question. If you ask a question and you kind of, round out the question a little bit more as you're asking it, and you give the person maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 seconds to actually think about the question, come up with an answer in his head, you're going to be better off. Now, people who have done interviews, you don't necessarily need to do that to. People who do this all the time. But we don't, generally we'll have a wide range of people on this show. Some people who have done interviews and some people who haven't. So it's sort of hard to remember who we're dealing with all the time, and you get into the habit of asking questions in a certain way, at least I do, and that's sort of what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think this is probably a very fair criticism, I think, of myself and the way I do ask questions. I think I tend to be, overly verbose and talk a lot, and sometimes I do lead the witness and that kind of thing. And I personally, I think it's totally fair to just ask the question and let them run with it. But like Daniel said, it's especially with the guests that talk well, that speak well, the cogent, rational, thoughtful ones that are able to put their thoughts together coherently. I think it's reasonable to ask us to endeavor to ask the question in STFU. I think that's fair.
Next one of the things that made Form Static and Bumpkin segments was they were a way to give you access to the creativity and intelligence of the wider community. Sometimes the thread in NVG that you wanted to bump was something you liked, but Mike didn't, or vice versa, in case you missed it and favorite things, lacked that component. The show with T-Chan is smarter than it was with Mike, sorry Mike, but it is also more preaching to the converted, except on auto mechanics, where Adam clearly has a massive rationality leak. Finding issues that pertain...
And police dealing with is also the other.
Finding issues that pertain to poker where you and T-Chan don't agree would be good. You could even do a segment around that based on fighting rounds, the whole MMA thing. He can kick your ass in a fight, but who wins the argument? Whatever. Just don't take positions just for the sake of arguing. That sucks. I never, ever take the position for the sake of arguing. That's one thing that I cannot stand in people who are in media. There's a person in Vancouver Sports Radio who does that constantly, and he's on the radio all the time, and I can't stand the guy. Literally hate him
it's terrible.
For his it's awful.
I also don't feel like we agree with these each other as much as sort of was indicated. I understand it's different than with when you and MJ were on.
We disagreed more, for sure.
Yeah, have very different background, but I feel as though this is it's like a relative thing, right? Like you disagree more than you do with MJ, but I mean, I certainly disagree with you on a lot of points. I think some of which we cover usually in case you missed it, because usually we have different perspectives on whatever it is that people might have missed.
Yeah, and he does make a point about form static and bump earlier in that point where we should bring that back. And
another like important thing to remember is that we use forum static
for the in case you missed it. Yeah,
exactly, because a lot of the times a lot of it we pull off of Twitter, a lot of it we pull off, whatever feeds that we subscribe to. But 2+2 is still like the hub of where poker news often breaks. And so we're when we're researching the show and we're looking up stuff to talk about, it's most of the time it's off the forum threads.
Indeed. Next point, I wonder if the show is losing a little touch with the current wizards of the game. There's a component of this that is just the fallout of Black Friday at all. When poker was being televised, it was part of the conversation as to whether Galfond or Townsend or Selbst or whoever belonged at the tables. Likewise, so on that one, maybe. I mean, we're getting older, and there you keep getting the same age as the Dazed and Confused line goes. But are we losing touch with that player? I'm not sure that's the case.
Well, he brings up a good point, which is Black Friday, which sort of I think a lot of it also as well, like the celebrity superstar. He mentions Galfond and Townsend and Selbst. Like these people were big names because there just weren't as many great online wizards as there are now, and so it's really hard. We talk about Anthony Zinno because he keeps winning, or we talked about Dan Coleman when he keeps winning. But I don't know that there's necessarily as much media hype. I guess I think it's around who are the best players in the world. I think it's more talked about within the sort of the high roller circle. Neither of which is what that we're a part of. I talk with JC, and he still plays those 25Ks and those 100Ks, and so he's very much aware of who's who in that industry. But I don't think that's an area that you and I are really knowledgeable. I mean, somebody like Chicago Joey's maybe a bit more knowledgeable about, say, high stakes PLO, but I don't think any of us, being those wizards, we're aware of who the truly greatest players in the world are.
Indeed. So that's from Daniel. His online screen. If you refer to it online, please use my screen name. Makinen is his screen name.
Good job.
I've called him Daniel the whole time. But anyway, so that's Makinen.
Ross, can we just bleep him out? Like, can we every time that me and Adam say his name, can we just bleep that out now? Because we can't go back to the ball. So the next one is from Ian Collard, and he wrote in, and it was a long email, but he asked, the general question was, would you go back? And if you could, would you do? This is a question for Terrence and I. Would you still spend all your life playing poker? And I thought that was, the large majority of your life. Interesting question. Would I go? I'm going to answer. I don't think I would, to be honest with you. I think look, poker has allowed me to live a nice lifestyle and not have to go in the salt mines and get up and go to work every morning at 7 a.m. and drive an hour each way, whatever. But I've talked about it before on the show. I don't find it fulfilling at all. This show is the most fulfilling part of poker for him because it's accomplishing something. I don't feel like I accomplished anything if I sit and grind away a couple thousand hands. So if I had to do it all over again, I think I would probably go to law school or do something like that. So my answer may surprise people. I would say no, I wouldn't do it. Wow, that does surprise me. To me, it's not even close. Poker has given me so much. I played my first hands of Hold'em when I was 17. I'm twice that age now. So basically, almost exactly half of my life has been poker, and all of my adult life is poker. I enjoyed my time working for Pokerstars, which I never would have gotten if I wasn't super obsessed with poker for the first few years of my life. Doing this show, like as you mentioned, super fun. Yeah, grind. I don't play poker, and I don't enjoy the pro poker scene as much as I did. But I think that's just part of development as growth. I don't know if I'm the type of person that would have enjoyed doing anything for 17 years. And so poker has given me far too much. It's introduced me to almost all of my best friends in the world. I never would have met you, certainly, Adam. I never would have met Ross. All these great people that I would have met. All the travel that I would have done. The sort of experience that I had just kind of being an entrepreneur for so many years. Fundamentally, that's what pro poker players are, is entrepreneurs and businessmen. It's given me a lot.
A self-contractor.
Yeah, well, yeah. When you're at the airport, you're an independent gaming contractor, but that's really how I feel about it. I think poker has given me so much, and even if you're talking to me 3 years from now, and I have nothing to do with poker, and I'm not doing the show, and I don't know anybody in the poker world, and I never play a hand of poker again, I would never have regretted taking up poker and playing it and going all in and being super enthusiastic. And I think that's really, for me, the key life lesson is even if it's not what I choose to do with my life now, it's you can't go back and look at regrets of what you choose to do if it's something that's been really good for you. By the way, Christy Arnett on her blog yesterday wrote a piece of gratitude, just perfect timing with this email. If you go to christyarnett.com, she wrote basically a thank you letter to poker and all the things. And I very much am on side with her. We come from poker from different perspectives. Obviously, she came in on a media side first and then became a professional poker player. I'm kind of going in the reverse direction. But yeah, I mean, not to be overly long-winded, but I owe so much to poker and the poker community and everything that I would never consider a regret at all.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think more of the people side of it. You make a good point there. I wouldn't have met a majority of my friends without poker. The other thing that you made me think about was I've got to spend a lot of time with my kids that a lot of people wouldn't have had to spend, and because of the fact
40 hours a week in an office that you don't have to spend in an office.
So that's a big thing too. If I could have done something where I could still have all that, I guess maybe I could ask that, but I amend my answer, I guess. Let's get to 140 or less.
140 characters. That's it. I love hashtags. I love all of them.
Terrence Chan
needs more than 140 characters to express himself.
140 or less.
So I follow this guy on Twitter named Chris Dixon. He's at C Dixon, and he's like basically a tech startup guy. And he sort of mentioned that like maybe the 140 part of Twitter needs to go because everybody's using like cheats to get around 140 or less. Like you'll post like an image. You ever see this? Like somebody posts an image of their iPhone, which is like this big wall of text, or they'll do this like multi-part rant, which is like 1 of 4, this happened, 2 of 4, this thing happened. Like they're basically gaming Twitter because they can't fit in their stuff in 140 characters. So I kind of feel like Twitter is lame for the 140. So I feel like if anybody out there works for Twitter, just get rid of the 140. Nobody cares anymore. They can be long.
Why don't they make it
350 or less?
350 or less, yeah. Or if you think about it, like people who are tweeting in like Japanese or Chinese or something like that, they get like a whole word for every character.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas like if you write Italian or something like that, or whatever, Indonesian, like you have to use up like all your characters typing a word.
And it's the thing about Twitter is it's a perfect market. You just if you gave it unlimited characters and some guy's constantly posting walls of text, you have one button and he's dusted.
Yes, exactly.
So you either want to see all the things he is or you unfollow him.
Exactly.
Yeah. No,
anyway, that's my little 140 or less rant, but still, I still like the drop.
Robert Mizraki. I got scammed the other day by a gypsy telling me he will fix my dent for $120. I'm a fool. Lesson learned. He put this white compound on. #joke. Never get your car repaired by somebody in the street, especially if he's a gypsy. I got fooled because he had a 1-year-old baby in the car. How is such a good poker player like Robert Mizraki getting gamed by a gypsy in the street saying he'll fix his dent for $120?
Is that I'm trying to figure it. Is that slightly racist, that tweet?
Gypsy? Gypsy's no race.
Gypsy? I can't picture a gypsy.
They're an ethnic group. Gypsies are an ethnic
I don't think
group.
of gypsies as ethnic groups. Maybe I'm wrong. I think of them as a traveling sort of type of person with no real
Okay. Well, I guess there's various definitions of the word. By the way, that tweet has to be more than 140 characters.
It is
right?
2 tweets, I believe. Yeah.
There you go. It's 2 tweets.
He's
but yeah,
it.
no. But to your comment though, like this isn't uncommon. Like poker players suck at life generally, right? Like poker players do all kinds of like terrible financial decisions all the time.
So true. Alan Kessler.
Oh,
hi. Nice to be on your show again.
God, I love it. I love Kessler. I have a great idea to stop endless tanking in tournament poker. If you tank, get clock called, and eventually fold, you must show your cards. Okay, not a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, is he talking about like river tanks and like turn tanks?
Right.
Because I think because those are the tanks that I actually don't. I mean, obviously, I don't like ridiculous tanking of any kind, but this doesn't really like a lot of this stuff is like just these people who, like. Before it's like it's checked to them, and they do the 10-second.
That's the issue.
The classic look at the cards, look at the guy, look down, count out chips, look at the guy again. Count out the exact chips. Slowly drop the chips in the middle of felt like you have cerebral palsy. Like that's the kind of stuff we need to get rid of. It's not like this guy shoved for 3x the pot on the river. Like that stuff can stay. That's part of the legitimate thing. But I mean, yeah, well, I like that.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm glad that Chainsaw's trying to find creative solutions, but this isn't the one.
Yeah, and I think what happens is you penalize the people with actual tough decisions because anybody who's going to Hollywood is going to take up the most amount of time they're allowed to.
Right.
And then fold, and then the people who do have tough decisions have to roll their hands over because they got the clock called.
Right, and it's going to intimidate the hell out of amateurs, too, because they're like, oh, I have to fold and show my hand. Like, people are going to think I'm terrible or something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think that's...
shot clocks all the way.
Shot clocks are a much better idea, in my opinion. We'll see if
2 people, by the way, sent us I don't have exactly who tweeted at us right now, but 2 people tweeted at us that the Dusk Till Dawn poker room, which is a fairly sizable card room in Nottingham, England, they tweeted at us that they're doing shot clocks for their poker tournament. So that's apparently going well. I think one of them sent me the Facebook page, which was a closed group, so I couldn't actually read what the comments were. But that's okay. But it's good to see that shot clocks are going on. I have it now. It's at Rob__Painter and at ELZ442 Eleanor. They let us know that Dusk Till Dawn is going to shot clock formats, and the dealers are apparently fully in charge of this. What they do is they look at the tournament clock as soon as it's somebody's action, and they just count down 20 seconds, and then they kill the hand. So again, it's one of those things where you need good dealers. I certainly wouldn't be a favor of introducing this at the World Series Colossus event. But yeah, shot clocks. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening to the show. Thanks, Terrence, for joining us again from Mexico City. So you're going to be in Mexico City next week?
Next week, I should still be in Mexico City, but hey, I do things on the spur of the moment. I never know.
Roscoe, thank you for coming down. Hi there. And thanks to everybody out there for listening to the show. Really appreciate it. Thanks to Alan Boston and Mr. Steve Day for joining us on the show next week. When are we going to do the show next week? Are we going to do it early again? Aren't you going away, Ross?
I don't mind.
I'm going to New York in April. So
you're going to New York in April. So we got to start.
We're still good for this week. We'll see. I don't mind doing the show on the Tuesday because I always think that people always don't like it when they do it later in the week because they can't get their invitational and they don't have their grind. And I also think more people listen if we do it early. So I don't mind doing it on the Tuesday. We'll see what kind of news happens in the poker world. Maybe it'll be an exciting week and we'll be really excited to do a show next week.
Fair enough. Thank you, everybody, and we will talk to you next week.
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries so we will be able to build up our future for our children.
Thank you very much, South Carolina.
Thanks for joining us. The 2+2 Pokercast has been presented to you by the Pokerstars VIP Club.